Well, it says I'm live. Hopefully I'm live.
Well, it said waiting for blue marble.
Well, that should have switched at this point. It just takes a second or two for YouTube to catch up, I think.
Okay, I've muted it on YouTube.
Good, good. So how about it? You guys hearing us out there? Little Sean Hawkins. Hey, Squirrel and the Turtle Moves. And who else? Shadow Feather. Well, they're not complaining, so I guess either they're not hearing us or they're happy with what they are hearing. I don't know which.
Okay, I unmuted and I could hear you talking with the delay.
Okay, well, we should be good, I think.
The volume was low.
Volume's low. That doesn't look like it on OBS. The volume looks right. I don't know. Hey, some of you guys out in the chat, tell us how we sound. K-Max says loud and clear. Okay, good. That's what we wanted. So good afternoon, everybody. Anybody wants to jump in Discord, feel free. There's Shaky. Hello, Shaky.
Hello, Blue. Well, you're quite loud here, but on YouTube it's a bit loud.
I didn't get that last part.
I said here you're quite loud in this one, but on YouTube it's a bit loud.
YouTube's low, huh? I have no idea what I can do about that. Let's see. I don't think there's anything I can do about it, actually.
Maybe not.
Oh, we'll let it go for the time being.
Yeah, let people crank up the volume.
Yeah, that's right. Well, everybody's got a volume control, so there you go. No problem. How you been, Chuck?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I haven't done a live stream in a while, so I thought today might be a good day just to, it's a nice Friday afternoon. Nothing much going on. Might as well have some fun. Hey, Doofus.
Hi. Have you heard that force and pressure are the same thing?
Really?
Yeah.
You know,
flat earther told me.
I learn something new every day in this arena. Which one of the geniuses came up with that nonsense?
Force and pressure, the same thing. I cannot remember specifically. I remember which server, but I don't really want to get into that. Who does what on what server kind of, drama.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same server where I was told that spheres don't have a surface.
How does that work?
It doesn't. It's so much fun hanging out.
Yeah, they still pitch fits about the idea that surfaces are only two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I had that discussion on a different server. I asked them, if I have two coordinate components, if I have latitude and longitude, how does that make it three-dimensional? And we can count the coordinate components. I've got latitude, I've got longitude. Let me know what the third one is.
Yeah, and there isn't a third one.
Right.
It's all you got, latitude and longitude. That's enough. Well, if that surface is three-dimensional, I keep asking the obvious question, how thick is it?
Right. What is the volume of that surface was another question I think Chaiki was asking.
Yeah.
Or at least somebody was trying to hold their feet to the fire.
I've been asking them that for a long time now. If the surface is three-dimensional, it must have a volume. What would the volume be? How do I figure that out? And they can't.
Are you talking over on Earth Awakenings?
No.
I've been there a bit. I've been on Jose's a bit. I've heard a bunch of derp in various locations.
Yeah, there's the guy that owns that server talks about how a ball isn't a sphere, the Earth isn't a sphere, and a sphere is a two-dimensional object, and its surface or a surface is three-dimensional. Yeah, so they have absolutely no idea.
I mean, I can go along with when you said a ball is not a sphere. Strictly speaking, that is true. But
yeah,
if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of geometry and specific terms, but yeah, they can't get it all at once.
Well, he doesn't even think it's a spherical shape.
Hey, shout out to Digital Demonic Davros for 5 Australian. Says there's no depth to that argument. Stay shallow. I like it.
Shallow Earth.
I've been listening to that Daniel Brooks trial all morning, and yeah, I'm ready for a break from that.
Yeah, strictly speaking, from the standpoint of a mathematician, a sphere is actually the surface.
There, I got you a relevant quote. I posted it in the chat.
A ball is the volume contained inside that sphere.
I read when I looked it up, it said a surface or a volume. So
yeah, no, the strict terms will be ball is the volume and sphere is the surface.
Right.
Okay.
That's for the math purists out there. But that's how they define it.
Yeah, but I got you a relevant Bev quote. He likes if you can submerge a surface and it displaces a liquid, that's how you know it's a three-dimensional surface.
Oh, Lord. Hello, Rumpus.
Hashtag thanks, Bev.
Well, I mean,
is that what I get? An oh, Lord.
Well, the surface of the sphere, if you look at it from a different point of view, it's the surface has height, width, and depth, but not when you're talking about, what am I trying to say?
Well,
if you look at a sphere, it has a surface, and the sphere is three-dimensional, so the surface has to be three-dimensional too. Right? That's what they think.
That's what they think, yeah.
But the same argument, by that same argument, a line would be three-dimensional. Right. Because that occupies 3D space as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did actually put a post in about 3 weeks ago or something, because I'm doing this document. I'm doing this sort of guide to the globe for people that's about, I don't know, 100 points or something and about 50 pages long. And I put in there my definition of what a surface is. And Clive Wells, I didn't get back to him. He said, I made this point that that it doesn't occupy any volume, and I made and it's on a one-dimensional thing. And he seemed to then suddenly jump into some infinity argument. I don't know whether he was thinking that a line could sort of wrap around itself and then actually form a volume. I didn't pin him down. I'm going to have to do that again because he claims my bit was wrong, but I think you agreed with it, Blue. And if it doesn't have any volume, it doesn't matter how many lines you put on top of one another. It doesn't have volume. Neither does a surface. they're infinitely thin, therefore they have no volume, therefore they're not 3D. I mean, they occupy 3D space, but then, as I say, so does a line. And we don't even the flat. And actually, even Bev, when I put that to him, seemed to take a step back and think, yeah, it's actually a line. Oh, that's right. They then said the orientation of the line was somehow important, or if it was curving. And then that means that, hold on, you're telling me if I change the way I orientate a line, that changes how dimensional its inherent properties are. No, sorry. The line, that's just a matter of changing the coordinate system. You're saying just on the orientation of your coordinate system. Obviously, that would mean that everything was having this. If you did take that view, then that would mean that all objects will have the same dimensions as the space they were in. So, for instance, if we in a 5-dimensional space, then the line would become 5-dimensional. The surface would be 5-dimensional. 3-dimensional would be 5-dimensional. So there'd be no. You might as well just give up describing the dimensionality of an object. You'd just be talking about the space in which you were looking at it in. So that makes. And obviously, lines have very different properties. You can only move along a line, and then you can move around in a certain set of points. And if something was truly 3-dimensional, then it should be able to occupy all 3-dimensional, if it's extended as far as it likes, it should be able to occupy all the space, and obviously a line can't. So it's just silly to refer to something as the same dimensionality as the space in which it's living. It has to be something inherent about the thing. So a line, you can only define a point, and you only need one coordinate to move along a line, and you only need 2 coordinates to map to find every point on a surface. So those are the properties. And then the fact that you then project them into the space in which they live, that's not really part of the object. It's you can't describe an object by how it's the space it's living in. You need something about the inherent properties of it. So, yeah, which it involves a bit of thinking, and so obviously that's too much for a Bevite, who I was trying to explain to yesterday. It still rejects spherical geometry and didn't understand that a spherical square and a spherical triangle around an equator or something look the same thing. But anyway,
well, all that is meaningless, because I learned from a guy named Face Reality that the Earth is supernatural because it was created by a supernatural being.
Can't supernatural beings create things that aren't supernatural?
Well, not according to this guy.
Right. Okay. Well, that works. Well, we give up then. Obviously, he's right. It's by searching.
Hold on. So we're supernatural also.
Yep.
Yeah, we have to be.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
So everything is supernatural. So let's call it supernatural natural, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it basically becomes, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that is the difference. If we thought something was supernatural, and then discovered it had all the, it behaved in a reliable, predictable manner, we would then call it natural. I mean, something like the quantum indeterminacy and the way things, and the fact that 2 electrons, for instance, can be at different sides of the universe, and then if you affect one, like when they're entangled, it can affect the other. Or the fact that time, I mean, you could argue that time changing is not natural. Ultimately, if you find something that's going to behave in a definable mathematical way, then it doesn't matter how weird it is, how supernatural it is, things popping into existence and then going away again, which is what virtual particles do. Well, that doesn't sound very natural, but ultimately, if it's describable with maths, it becomes natural. So God, you could argue that God, I mean, we just mean by supernatural, really, that it doesn't conform to our current understanding of physics, really.
Well, I kind of wanted to go back to the previous point before that tangent, which was about dimensionality and coordinate systems.
Good.
This brings up another point that deficiency that we find with flat earthers often, which is they only have one coordinate system with which they think everything must adhere to, and they think everything must be Cartesian. Lengths are linear, and everything's perpendicular, or every axis is perpendicular.
Yeah.
However,
and that's what
a polar
confuses
graph
them, Diffus.
is a very. I'm sorry.
That's what they're confused about. They only recognize a Cartesian system, and a point which has no dimensions. Still, in a Cartesian system, still needs 3 dimensions in order to specify where it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the point is 3-dimensional.
It's like they mix perspective and orthographic views because
Oh.
they don't understand stuff. The same concept.
Right.
I'm sorry, but go ahead.
So if they
Steve.
think, if they think Cartesian systems are the only systems that work, I mean, then they have to acknowledge, or I mean, it's easy to point out to at least the people who are listening, polar graphs exist. Obviously, things that are not Cartesian do work, and we can do useful work with them. So this whole everything has to be Cartesian mess in order to be, quote, Euclidean, that's completely nonsensical. There's no requirement for that.
The other amazing thing was I had a quick go on Bevs yesterday, and they again dispute the existence of spherical geometry, even though it's a Googleable thing and there's a big Wikipedia page on it. And even telling Bev that if you're drawing on a surface of a sphere, you're doing non-Euclidean geometry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, it's a case of, is he too stupid to understand what's going on? Or is he being willfully stupid and dishonest? It's very difficult to tell sometimes. Well, all the time, in fact. Well, no, I definitely know he's being stupid a lot of the time. And I know he's definitely being dishonest some of the time. Whether it's the overlapping. But yes, but he refuses to do that because I think he knows deep down that if he starts thinking about doing things on a sphere, that will somehow upend his belief in. Of course, it's got the word spherical geometry is the problem. Spherical geometry is about just being on the surface of a sphere. What you can do, the geometry of being on the surface of a sphere. But because it's got the word sphere in it, they think, that's the Euclidean 3D thing. Which obviously, I mean, a sphere, you can do all your lovely Euclidean operations on it, and it is a 3D thing. It's defined in a Euclidean way. But the concept of, I mean, all it means Euclidean, of course, means that it does parallel lines meet or spray out, that's or diverge. That's all that really makes it non-Euclidean, a surface of a sphere. But it does that, and you can demonstrate this by just drawing stuff on it. And providing you're restricted, this is what it goes. If you're restricted to the surface of a sphere, they occasionally make the odd sort of attempt to argue and say, well, like I drill through, if I want to get this shortest line between 2 points, isn't a curve, it's a straight line. If I'm able to drill through the sphere that it's on, then obviously that is a straight line and that's the shortest distance. But if you say, no, the whole point about spherical geometry is you're only allowed to move around on the surface, then the shortest distance between 2 points has to be a curve. And that's a bit where they obviously have a problem.
And you can only move in 2 directions on that surface. You only have 2 degrees of freedom on that surface.
Someone did try and say to me on Bevs yesterday, well, how can you describe a sphere in spherical geometry? No, you can't, because it's only 2-dimensional. Just because it's got the word sphere in it does not mean to say you can describe, so you can't have spheres in spherical geometry in the sense of a sphere sitting on your surface. It's only 2-dimensional. You've only got 2 coordinates, as you say, and you can't have a spherical bally thing defined in that space. It's only a surface. And of course, it's really useful to us. And I mean, so you can do things. You can demonstrate what the shortest line. It's got to be a curve between these things. You can do it physically in your own bedroom, which is usually the acid test that they apply. Can I see this in my bedroom? Yes, you can. Get a ball in your bedroom, and then start drawing on it. And think, how do I? Oh, look, that shortest distance between 2 points. And of course, it's really useful to us on the Earth because we live on a sphere. And therefore, if we want to know the shortest distance between 2 airports, you have to start doing spherical geometry type operations, like have a sign stuff and goodness knows what. So that's why it's useful. It's directly applicable to the real world, and you can do it in your bedroom. It's just, but I'm gonna have to. When I have this debate with Mobius and SE, I'll do this. Go through this, but I'm not quite as confident about getting through to them on that one as I am about showing them that you can have drop and hump at the same time.
It's certainly not unique to the Earth. It is true for any sphere.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's directly applicable to the real world. The reason we talk about it and think it's quite important is it's not just some sort of conceptual space which is interested mathematicians who spend their entire life worrying about these things and not living in the real world. It is a real world thing that's applied to real world navigation and operations in the real world.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, but
Hey, B-ball.
There you be, ball.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
How are you today?
I am good. I just posted a new video. It should be up in about another 40 minutes.
Oh, cool. And what have you done this time?
So my good old friend Witsit had a live stream where he borrowed Flat Earth Banjo's AE map to explain Southern Hemisphere flights.
Hmm.
Oh, it's gonna be epic. You'll like it.
That sounds awesome.
Funny thing, yesterday, Bev had to kick Brenda from his server for spreading misinformation.
Really?
Really?
I missed that.
If Bev starts kicking people for spreading misinformation, there will be nobody on his stream.
Wow.
As in, he really kicked her out of the server permanently.
Yeah, no.
No, not. I don't think. I don't know.
He just kicked her from that stream, I think.
What was the information that what information was she spreading?
Something about calibration of Theodolites.
Oh God.
This is the guy who did not understand that theodolites can show horizontal. I mean, it's just incredible. This is a guy who goes on about auto levels, and clearly, just like he only understands that something happens in his bedroom, he's only ever familiar with an auto level. And so when he was told by George and myself and others that you can use a theodolite to give you a horizontal, he was absolutely astonished. And then he wanted to know how it worked. And when he was informed it had effectively the same as a compensator as you have in a or something, an equivalent, you have a sort of plumb bob type device inside the theodolite, he was absolutely astonished, and he wanted a full explanation of how this all worked. He's just unfamiliar with basics.
Has he ever seen that that water level that Jesse did? You know which one I'm talking about, with the red liquid in the water level?
I didn't think Jesse did that. I thought that
talking
was
about Jesse Gordon.
Yeah, Jesse Gordon.
Oh, Jesse Gordon, all right. Oh.
You know which one I'm talking about?
I'm sure he's seen it. Yeah, where he's looking across a valley or something at a building.
And he does it at different heights. Is this the one with the red water, and he does it at 3 different heights of a mountain?
No, just one height.
He's over. It's looking over water to like Canada somewhere. And
there's another one with red. Right, there's another one with up a mountain where someone's got it with a red water, and again he's at 3 different heights, looking across to some other mountains.
Yeah, I think that's the same. I think it's the same one, the same guy. But the one I'm talking about is he's over water and he's looking at buildings.
Oh right,
yeah.
No, it's not. I haven't seen that one.
Like, what is? I mean, I know Bev. He fucking swears by water levels.
Oh yeah, but he complained when Sly was having a discussion with Sly, and they brought up the one I'm thinking of, and he said water levels don't work over that distance. And he accused Sly of wiggling it around or something. He basically does not believe that water levels have any validity to anything if you use them beyond the end, which the far end of your water level. Beyond that, they've ceased to work. Apparently, you cannot look at something looking along the line of a water level beyond the last water level.
Are you saying that you
just like an
look
auto level
across the water level?
Just like in auto level, he claims that you can't. Just as Blue obviously had met this when he was having that debate with him 2 weeks ago, or whatever, about the looking at Blackpool Tower. He was only prepared to think about what the auto level was doing to the point where it went to Bev and the measuring rod. After that, apparently, it has no meaning. It is of no use. It's not doing anything you can talk about. The guy is bonkers.
Yeah.
And he talks about extending lines. He keeps on quoting Euclid, saying one of the postulates, axioms, is the second one or something. That you can extend a line segment to any distance to make it infinite. Well, hold on. I've got this horizontal, and which, of course, I've got this graticule in my auto level, which he then sort of says it's only in the auto level, you know. Yes, we know this, but it still gives you defines a horizontal plane visually off to infinity. And for some reason, there's a point at which he doesn't think you can't extend it. It somehow wears out or becomes invalid after a useful distance to him. And if you're looking at Blackpool Tower, oh, that's much too far away. It's only allowed to go as far as Bev.
No,
Yeah, for some reason.
the official claim is that he used the instrument not for the purpose it was intended. My question is, when was Bev last used when he last used his equipment for the purpose it was intended to? Does he have any proof he did?
Yeah, at some point, I guess to him, at some point, it stops becoming a horizontal plane.
Yes, I presume so. Because I mean, his idea is that it's only a line inside the compensator, and therefore, I mean, it just doesn't work. Even from, as I say, the reason I raised the extended thing is that he seems to understand that Euclid's defined lines that can be extended, but for some reason, when it's inconvenient to him, an auto-level plane, in effect, can't be extended infinitely. But yes, I think he's tried to come up. What was it 6 months ago with some story about it like being bent or something in some way that therefore after a certain distance. And of course the trouble is these stupid manuals in these auto level things say the maximum distance you can use it is 200 feet or something. But that's only if you want to use it with a flipping goddamn with a measuring rod. And it.
Yeah, but they really don't say that. They'll list a usable range, but it's based on the size of the markings on a measuring rod.
But it does use the words maximum range in there. Mine, for instance, I think has a maximum range in there.
I have a manual that was given to me by George, rest in peace, that literally has a section just for curvature and refraction.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll find that.
So that's the trouble. They're confused by the words maximum range and then realizing that the auto level doesn't have to be used. I mean, he thinks, of course, it's an essential part of the auto level is this measure. No, it isn't. The only thing the auto level does is give you a nice horizontal graticule with 2 stadia marks in addition to that. That's all its job is. And it gives that correctly. And obviously you've got to allow for refraction. That's all it does. And if you then use that with a measuring rod, that's fine. You can do that, but it doesn't stop it doing all the thing that it fundamentally does. It's the logic of these people is just
if you know anything about what you're doing, you eliminate all of those errors by doing differential leveling. As soon as you do a foresight and a backsight, you wipe out collimation errors, you wipe out refraction, and you wipe out the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
All three of those things disappear as soon as you do a foresight and a backsight.
Yeah, it's amazing. I didn't realize this until what Larry mentioned to me about a year and a half ago. I was that's why they do it. And it's just remarkable how you can eliminate those fundamental errors just by using that procedure. And I just didn't realize before then what's this going on about backsight without explicitly saying why you should be doing that. And of course you don't. And for instance, I'll bring it up again, be boring. Measuring the height of Mount Everest, of course, they didn't have foresights and backsights. They had to make a measurement from. Here's an example. If you get a flat earther saying there's a limitation on the working range of a theodolite stroke auto level, remind them that they measured the height of Everest over 80 miles away. And that's rather further than the limits supposedly that they're talking about in these manuals. So just tell them to sod off. And bear that in mind, we can measure the height of Everest using 19th century technology over a distance of 80 miles. And that just invalidates their whole argument if you bring that up. And that'd be one of the things to be in my little guide to refuting flat earthers and the globe. And that's a very powerful argument. I think people should take that one on board, I think, so that people like Bev and I mean, these words seems to have pervaded other people, and they immediately bring up the limitations of the range, and you can immediately destroy that argument by mentioning the determination of the height of Everest.
I've developed a new argument against flat Earth.
Very good. Are you going to treat us to it?
Huh?
Are you going to treat us to it?
Oh, yeah. So there's supposedly a container, according to Nathan Oakley, Quantum Racer, and everybody in that crowd, that's supposed to keep the air from rushing out into whatever's beyond the container. But yet they also say that the container or the firmament separates the waters above from the waters below, right? So all there is out there is water. I actually had a flat earther confirm that there's no space outside the container. It's all water. Water's above, water's below.
This firmament.
Well, then,
business.
according to that, water is a vacuum.
Well, they dispute there's a vacuum up there, I think.
Well, they say that the air will be sucked out by whatever's outside the container if the container's not there. Well, it's all water.
Yeah, but I think they're saying that's our model.
then that
I think they're saying
that
if
doesn't make
our
any
model
sense.
to be accepted, that would happen. But I think they're saying that there's not a vacuum up there. If they go for the religious firmament view.
No, they are saying that water is a vacuum because of what they're saying about that there's water out there and the air will be sucked out into whatever's beyond the container.
I'm not sure that's universal. I think that's
And
a small section you're
the same
talking
people
about.
that say that, well, the reason we had Noah's flood is because the firmament opened and allowed the waters to come in. That's what the Bible says.
Yeah, that's
Why,
popular amongst
if we don't have a container, will the air rush out if the water will come in if there's holes in the firmament?
Well, presumably
So
God opened
where
up the
did-
holes.
So where did the water go after they came down from the firmament?
Don't know.
Back up through the
Yeah.
holes into where it came from?
No one saw that.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't write it down, presumably.
Said they describe how the water came down, but nobody saw them came up. Only they
presumably
became
that's
less
more-
and less.
That's presumably easier to see, having the water coming down rather than evaporating away gradually, presumably, and back up into the firmament is something that you could argue. And given the fact that only Noah was around, presumably there were many fewer people to document this. In fact, who's supposed to have documented the Great Flood? Is Noah supposed to have written all about this?
I guess. But see, they were too busy. The 8 people left over after a good and kind God killed everyone else. They were all locked in a boat and they couldn't see what happened. So,
Yeah, I mean, I presume that's their reasoning, is that there weren't enough
And
people
let's
to
suppose-
document it.
Let's suppose the water evaporated. Where to?
This firmament place where it came from, presumably. The
But
holes were
if you
opened up by
open the
God.
gate, the water comes down.
Well, perhaps they had a
Right.
valve.
and that's the irreconcilable thing that they can't work out is the water came in, but if you take away the container, then the air will escape out. How can you have both? How can you have water come
one-way
in
valve
or
somehow.
water sucking everything out?
Maybe the
work.
pressure rose.
Yeah.
No, nobody measured that.
Yeah, they can make an argument for it being a one-way valve and the water evaporated high pressure goes through these holes and there's valves that God opened up, and there you go. I mean, the thing with arguing against
It's
God
like-
is he can do anything. So
It's like
it's very
Gore-Tex.
difficult.
It's Gore-Tex. The
exactly.
dome is made of Gore-Tex. It allows
Exactly.
air
You
out.
got it, Sean. Well done. Yeah, you worked it
It
out.
allows water in. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's reverse Gore-Tex.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I mean, remember, God can do anything. If
Oh,
you
yeah,
believe in God, he can do anything. So, I mean, you can't, he doesn't. He can break the laws of physics.
According to them, he can't. The only thing he can't do is make a round Earth in an infinite universe.
Well, I think they say he could have done it, but he didn't. I think is the idea. He chose to make a
Right.
flat one. So,
He just chose not to.
yeah.
Just made mud pie. It's a big old mud pie.
Yeah, there was.
And I mean, he can't be a strong God because science can defeat him, right? NASA can defeat God, according to them. So that's why.
Well, no, they're claiming that NASA's wrong, so they claim he can't defeat God.
Well, they say if the Earth is flat, then God didn't create it, so God's defeated.
No,
Let's say
They
they're very
hate
different.
NASA.
No, they definitely think God did create the flat Earth, and they believe it's flat. That's the reason why half of them, at least half of them, believe it on religious grounds, and they believe that God created it flat. They documented it's flat, and therefore it must be flat, irrespective of what evidence. Like Ken Ham, when he said whatever that debate with Bill Nye the Science Guy, he said if he's faced with an argument of science and evidence and what's been observed by humans and what God said, he'll go with what God said. There's no amount of evidence you can present to these people, these religious ones anyway, that will change their mind. If the Bible says, if they believe that the Bible says this is flat, although other people claim it doesn't, if they believe that's the case, then it doesn't matter what evidence you can provide other than that, it must be wrong. They're going to say your evidence is wrong because it says so. If it contradicts the Bible?
Yep.
So
Well, we can say that NASA does much better CGI than God.
Well, but they could argue that God doesn't try CGI. If he
Well,
did, he'd be
it's
fantastic if he did.
It's his problem. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, if God can do everything, remember, in their eyes, so
He
you
can,
can't.
but he isn't.
God
Indeed.
can't afford a seat, and God can't afford a license for Photoshop.
Well, obviously, I
American.
mean, there's all this belief in our free will, and we're making our own mistakes, isn't it? That's the line. So,
Yeah, until you're a non-Christian and practicing that free will, then they get down on you. They don't like you practicing free will.
oh God, Blue's posting about talk. Where was that debate that talk got described that I couldn't believe?
They think that's what makes the Cavendish work is torque.
Oh, it was Flatsoid, wasn't it? He didn't understand what torque was.
Yeah,
that was it.
a lot of them think you start the Cavendish moving, and then you bring the weights in, and it's the torque that makes that recoil.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing I don't understand.
Not because of the mass attracting mass, but because of the torque. It's like a spring.
Yeah, I mean, what amazed me about that, it just demonstrated that they don't understand that if you have a phenomenon like a force, which is what it manifests itself as in our space, it manifests itself as a force, then the thing is you have to measure that. So the thing in the actual experiment, as we've got someone here who's done to do this, you have to then have a means to measure the force. So the thing you actually end up being your dependent variable is, in Blue's case and Cavendish's case, is the period of oscillation. There's a formula that at the end of Blue's document says this is the G is equal to periodicity, the frequency of oscillation, and some other bits and bobs which are constants. And the only thing you need to measure, correct me if I'm wrong anyway, Blue, is just the frequency of the oscillation. And so from that is actually becomes your dependent variable because you've got several layers removed from the thing you're actually trying to measure. And of course, that was completely beyond Flatsoid's understanding, was that the thing you actually measure isn't necessarily directly the thing that the physics is that are causing, and you have a means of measuring something, just like with a voltmeter. You actually, when you look at an analog voltmeter, you're measuring the position of a needle. That's not the voltage. That's a needle that's moving according to the current or whatever the current that has to be going through the coil on the needle. So that's not the voltage, for instance, if you're measuring. That's a current-based thing. So we always have measurement schemes to measure things, and that becomes your dependent variable, the position of a needle. But in fact, it's measuring voltage or current or whatever resistance. And that was, of course, well beyond Flatsoid's understanding. So he got mixed up between torque being the dependent variable and the force, and then, oh Jesus! I mean, you have to draw these things out for these people.
Well, Flatsoid is the guy whose only tactic is whatever evidence you present me automatically debunks you.
Yeah. That guy's particularly bad, particularly stupid, particularly impossible to educate. His will really does demonstrate what a willfully stupid person is like.
Yeah.
Really, really bad.
He can't understand that the orthographic view that he shows of Polaris dropping in the distance because he's combined perspective in with it actually shows Polaris dropping physically and with distance. He can't understand that. He cannot wrap his mind around that.
I had some debate with some guy on it was not Electric or someone else too, who I think it was Electric something. When I pointed out how you work out perspective image, I then drew an orthographic diagram, and he said that's unfair. You're misrepresenting. You can't see. You can see yourself. Not realizing, of course, that that's how you would work out what the perspective. Of course, this guy didn't have any understanding of the perspective equations. He's never actually done a perspective calculation. He claimed to understand it, which basically his understanding was, I think, that things get smaller as they get further away. I think that was the limit of his understanding. But he claimed to understand it all. And then I should have made him, well, I can't, it never works, trying to get him, okay, then tell me what the angular size, I'm not even sure they understand what angular size is of this object, 100 meters away, 3 meters tall or something, and how you go about that. How would you represent that? But immediately I used an orthographic view to demonstrate this. It was regarded as a foul, and this guy was such an idiot, and I was lots of shouting people at me around as well, making it difficult. But if I got the guy one-on-one, I might be able to do something. But this idea that you can't, Oakley, of course, goes down this line, that you're seeing yourself, yes, but and then if people do use that argument, I recommend you mention, well, what happens if you've got two or three of any number of other people in your view? How would you then draw it? The point is, a perspective view is only two-dimensional. It was with Bev, actually. That was it, right? Yes, in fact, Bev was making the same argument. He's saying, oh, well, you would then have the different project. Oh, no, so that was talking about how you make sense. Forget that. So, yes, an orthographic view, if you want to represent multiple people in an image, how would you do that? You can't always show the first perspective view of something, and you don't want to anyway. If you want to draw an aeroplane or bridge or whatever, you use the orthographic view. And if you want to work out what the perspective view from a point of view is, it something you do after you've generated an orthographic. You can do it mathematically, of course, but if you want to represent what's going on, you do that orthographically and then say, right, for a person over here, we can then generate on a separate view, a separate projection, what the two-dimensional view from this observer is. And they can't see that that's a two-stage process. If you want to generate the view from an observer, that you start off from an orthographic view to generate that. But that's beyond them unless you can get them in a corner and get them to shut up and listen. Am I lauding you? Am I overdoing it, Blue?
No. You're being rumpus, that's all.
Sorry.
Nothing wrong
You're
with
lauding me now, honestly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
I got no problem.
It's really good.
Yeah, back to Cavendish, though. Yeah, you're basically correct. We find the torsional constant by measuring the oscillation frequency.
The period.
We ultimately determine what G is by measuring the deflection and the frequency. We need the torsional constant.
Oh, there's a deflection measure as well, is that? I've forgotten that.
Yeah,
okay.
we need to measure how much deflection we have.
Right. Okay. So from those, it's amazing, though, isn't it? You can reduce the whole thing down to an amplitude and a frequency, and that's it. And from that,
that's right.
You can. I mean, it's just incredible. So you don't. So you don't even know. I think when I had this discussion with you about 6 months ago, I'd forgotten the details. You don't even need to go and work. There's no. You don't even need to work out the torsion properties, the torsion constant of the wire.
No.
You just need to know the periodicity, and as you're saying now, I've forgotten the amplitude, and that's it. You could have any wire in there, in effect. It doesn't matter what the torsional constant of the wire is. It could be anything, but those two numbers, the only things you need to know are those two numbers, and from that you can work out G, which I think is just fantastic. Yeah. Everything else is a constant, isn't it?
That's right.
They're just brilliant to be able to reduce that. So there's no error in terms of if you think, oh, I didn't quite measure the torsional properties of the wire properly. It's got an error in there. No, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just the other constants, like the masses, obviously you need to have. I presume does that feature in the equation?
Well, yeah, you need the mass.
You're right, okay, but you can obviously measure that accurately. Yeah. So there's a couple of other constants.
Well, you need
in there,
distances. You need a number of things that are constants.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but provided you measure those properly, but the key thing, the one that I was always worried about, was that you needed to work out the properties of the wire you were using, and then include that and make an error. But as you say, you can eliminate that just by measuring what you've just described.
Right.
Then you don't need to make an explicit determination of it.
No, you don't. You do when you start initially with this thing, and you say, okay, I need to know what wire and what size the wire is made of, and
because you need an oscillation, don't you? You need something you can measure.
I need to know all of these. I need to know what I'm doing in order to build this thing. It gets a lot more complicated doing that. Because then you do have to go through all of the stuff.
Absolutely,
yes, and figure that torsional constant out and all of that.
Yeah, because I'm just said you could use any wire, but the trouble is if you say a 1 foot thick wire. But you wouldn't get any get any oscillational movement, so you wouldn't get. Although it would still work, you couldn't measure it. But obviously, if you used a wire that was only an atom wide, it would break. So you needed to go and work out ahead of time what would be give you a measurable result. But it didn't actually wasn't required to know that as part of your experiment. You just needed to know that so that you could end up with an experiment that was useful.
Now, what that will get you is within 5 to 10%, something like that. Just because there's variability, You think the wire is 8/1000th of an inch in diameter, but it may not be. Maybe it's 0.0085. I don't know. There's lots of things that can affect it. So you don't get, you get close, but you don't get exact doing it that way. But you've got to have a place to start, and I wasn't comfortable not doing that.
Absolutely.
Not to say that you couldn't, and just arbitrarily select a bunch of stuff and start trying different wire elements if you wanted to, and eventually you would find something that worked, I guess. But that's
I mean, the most important thing about your wire.
It's not a very professional way of going about doing it.
I mean, presumably the most important thing about your wire that it was linear and predictable, and that was the most important thing about your wire, obviously, and to be able to make a measurement, because otherwise that would screw everything up. But you, providing you could get a deflection of a measurable type using your laser thingy, then you're away. But you had to work out what you had to do to get that.
Right.
So it's a fantastic little equation at the end that you presented in your paper. How's that getting on? Has that been? Did you submit? I can't remember who you're submitting it to.
Nobody. It's just out there.
Okay, all right, but it's still brilliant. Yes, I do recommend anybody see that, and you see what someone actually has to measure. And someone like Whitsitt was completely unaware, and whoever is debating with, I can't remember now. Who was it he was debating? They didn't basically couldn't put this argument that I've just made, that although you're measuring a force, you have to then have a means to measure the force, and that means you're actually not measuring. It's not as though you've got a nice big force meter you can stick on it and say, right, oh, there's the result, that's the dependent variable. No, unfortunately, you've got to go through, jump over hoops to get that, and then actually measure something called a frequency period.
The odd thing is, the measurement device that you're using is the thing that you built. You built the measurement device.
Yes.
And there's nothing you can use to calibrate that other than it.
Right. Yes.
I mean, most of the time when you do an experiment, like you're talking about, you've got voltmeters or amp meters or whatever, gas chromatographs or some piece of test equipment that's already, done, defined. You got a book that tells you how to use it. You got none of that with Cavendish. You are building the test.
Look at the manual for the honest.
Yeah, there is no. It doesn't come with a book.
And you'll see this all the time. So if you do meet people, flat earthers, trying to talk about dependent variables, make sure it's quite easy actually to get lost in what you're actually measuring. You've got to be careful between what the experiment actually measures and what it's actually trying to measure in terms of the phenomenon. So we're trying to measure a force, obviously, but there's a means of doing it. And always you'll find there's some chain of things beyond the dependent variable to the actual dependent variable you're measuring. And it's very easy, and as I've seen a number of globers do, is to start getting confused between the thing that you're really trying to measure and the means of measuring it, and what the dependent variables, what you actually write down in your lab book or whatever that you would measure to actually get the thing you want. And of course, the other thing that also amazed me, people like Whitsitt, Flatsoid, that's right, he didn't understand, and QE and Nathan Oakley have been doing this for years and years and years, that you can have multiple, this is something else possibly Glover's not familiar with. When you have a dependent variable, there are obviously multiple, in a mathematical function, you have many independent variables, as they're called, just in a mathematical function, and then you have your dependent variable. But in an experiment, of course, you then change that. You make all but one of the independent variables a controlled variable, and then you just change one independent variable. So even though, and if you remove the other one, so like, for instance, you've got in the universal law of gravitation, Newton's law of gravitation, you've got the two masses and the distance. If you removed one of the masses, or you didn't have a distance, then you wouldn't have any phenomenon. You have to, but all an experiment does is to fix all but one of the independent variables. You still got to have them present, otherwise you're not going to get the phenomenon you're looking for. So you must. So when someone like Nathan will say, you can have multiple independent variables in an experiment, you say no. You have multiple independent variables that describe the mathematics of your phenomenon, but in an experiment, you change all but one of the independent variables to be controlled variables, and you fix them, and then you just change one of them. So you'll see the QE, if you get involved in the QE Nathan argument, they will try and catch you on saying you can't have multiple independent variables in an experiment. This is why Flatsoid was saying he didn't understand that a phenomenon has multiple independent variables. And of course, almost everything in real world, I mean, something I used to give an example several years ago, if I was to punch Nathan in the face, I could do that with a particular velocity and a particular weight of my hand, or with a hammer or something, and the damage it'd do to him would be dependent on the hammer I was holding and the speed with which I delivered it, or effectively the energy. So there'd be two dependent variables: hammer and velocity, the mass of the thing and the velocity that I was implementing. So there are two independent variables there. But if I was doing experiments, I'd have to fix one of them. But that was this QE and Nathan and clearly Flatsoid are not familiar with this idea of they start getting confused with calling it correlation or something, because they don't. And again, it's all they never understand. Flatties never can cope with more than one thing causing something else, or anything, or being more than one factor for any event or phenomenon. They can't. Their brain can't cope with. Just as they have to live in 3D and they can't conceptualize 2D or 5D, they can't conceptualize more than one thing being responsible as a cause for another thing. It seems to be all of them share that problem, and they can't cope with. I can't count beyond one, basically.
So, Rumpus, what I'm understanding from all of this is that blurfs are expecting every experiment to be run as if the object being experimented on is a perfect sphere in a vacuum.
Yeah, that's right. That sort of thing. Yeah, they just like to have an. They don't like anything that's a measuring instrumentation to try and get the answer you're looking for a dependent variable. I mean, Flatsoid just copied the QE narrative. Just obscene, really. Yeah, I mean, they all live in a perfect world, of course.
They'll ask you for evidence and measurements, and then what I usually say is like, okay, so what happens when I do bring you that evidence? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to accept it, or are you going to find some other hoop to jump through to not believe it?
You are Victoria's just made a great point. Of course, is that unless they haven't. If they haven't got a picture of it, or it's not on YouTube, it doesn't count. I think I remember debates over the years, a number of times the flatties come to, where's it on YouTube then? That was their ultimate reference. If it's not on YouTube and showing, then it's not part of science, which I find hilarious.
When I debated Brian Leakey on Flatsoid, I think it was on Flatsoids, he said, well, show me this. I'm like, no. Why? So you can deny it? You know, I refuse to come up with bright new, unique new ways to present stuff to these people, because they won't accept anything we give them.
And I can't tell you how many things I've showed Brian.
You're breaking up, people.
The past year, he asked me for so many, and I've showed him so many things, and he's still. When he asked me to go back, when I was in Hawaii, he asked me to go back to the same location to film the buildings. I went back in the afternoon, and he still denied it.
Yeah.
So, at this point, I'm like, well, why even ask for the? Just gonna either not.
No, because he meant you need to go later.
Yeah, 30 minutes later, as if that would have made some sort of difference.
Well, of course, most of their objective is just to disrupt what you're saying. I mean, Bev is the classic one where did it to Blue when he was debating him. Blue would make some point, and then he would say, do you know how Theodolite or some other tangential point to the one you're making to avoid the point that you're making, to disrupt the debate. And when obviously someone you were talking to, Sean, will say something. They're just there to disrupt your. I think deep down they know that you're saying something sensible, and they get into difficult areas, and therefore they think the best way as a debating ploy is the best way to counter a scientific argument is to then point out some sort of psychological thing, or I mean Bev, when he was debating recently, God, who was it he was having a chat with, and then he intervened every sort of few seconds. He would say a water level defines a horizontal in answer to a completely different thing. That was it. This Ryan guy. That was it. Ryan. That was it. The Ryan guy, who was on Red Rhetoric, and they've got a sort of default disruptive mode of not answering the question, of course, when they get into difficulties. And it's so basically, by your point, Earth is life, people, is that obviously half the time I think they are deliberately trying to just sabotage any explanation you've got.
Are you
because
saying that they're trying to sabotage everything you've got?
I am trying to say that. Yes,
What?
I am trying to
It's
say that,
like
Sean.
take Gary for instance. Like you know,
You're breaking up.
we were on Jose's. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
No.
can. I wish you'd sort out your internet or microphone or whatever it is.
All right, I'll wait.
You're okay now, but I mean, can't you fix it some way? Surely?
Mobile.
No, I'm using wireless headphones and I'm driving.
Yeah, right.
He's on maneuvers.
Is it better? Is it on? Is it better now?
Yeah, we can
It
hear you
is.
now.
Good enough.
Yeah.
So when we were talking to Gary the other day, and we showed him I showed him the picture where with the sun below the crosshairs, and when you I can clearly see that it's below.
Yeah, we lost you there.
Oh shit! All right, I give up. God damn it!
Yeah, the sun was below the crosshairs.
No,
Yeah.
we got that bit. And that was all.
But they'll
Oh,
deny
completely. Gary's completely obtuse. He's got his rubber bands, which proves that field of view is what's changing, and that changes the aspect of everything. And all vertical angles are measured from the horizon. So when you go higher, 10,000 feet up, and using a sextant, you get a different vertical angle because your field of view is different.
He thinks
He's
angle of view is field of view. Our field of view never changes. We always have the same field of view unless you shut one eye.
Yeah, and when reinforced to him in the manuals, you go to 10,000 feet. Yeah, then you have the dip angle, and you'll get the same vertical angle as if you use a bubble sextant. And he's like, no, it's the field of view. He's obtuse. He's as bad as Lemon.
Yeah.
That's what.
Oh.
You know what?
No.
We haven't heard in a long time.
August
heard from
30th
Nick
was the last date that I saw for his last time he logged in.
Who are we talking about?
Lemon.
Oh, thank God. Oh, please. That's the one guy I really can't take. That guy just makes stuff up and then makes some new stuff up, and you point out something like he believes that the eye sees something differently from the top or the bottom. And then you tell him, well, what happens if you stand on your head? Does something change? And then he sort of shuts up and then changes it to create some other piece of crap. Oh, that guy's
We're
just
gonna have to
impossible.
look into that.
Where's he been?
That's
I haven't heard him in a while.
Thank God.
August 30th was the last I heard from him.
I said, that's Gary. I was like, if I put a 2x4 under my nose, does that change my field of view? I mean, can I not see the 2x4? Obviously, I can still see it. I mean, my field of view hasn't changed.
Yeah, and then this is the argument, of course, these people are going on about horizon. Somehow your view is cramped by the ground or something. It's just extraordinary. They don't understand. It doesn't matter what you put in front of it, as you say, Blue Ball. That that doesn't matter what you put in front. Your field of view does not change. It's just what you've put in it. And so the idea that something like if a mountain's being obscured by the horizon, well, if we were to remove that obstruction, you would be able to see the mountain perfectly clear. If you made the water completely transparent and you could see through it, you would be able to see the mountain. There's nothing being compressed.
Of course,
squishy light.
Yeah, according to Lemon, it is. I mean, light, according to him, is sentient and intelligent. It knows when it gets close to your eyeball, and it immediately squishes and smushes and does all that stuff. I don't know how it does that, but it's
divine intervention, of course.
Yeah, I've got a video where I'm admonishing Lemon very, very vigorously. And he says, Larry may remember this. Lemon said that the light is an effigy and can appear anywhere at any time. And that's the level of dismissal of all things logical at that point is it's absurd.
Well,
and
when I was in the Army,
since sound is at a frequency and light is at a frequency, therefore light is sound, just higher, higher frequency sound. And Whitney was on
argument
too.
When I went to when I was in photo school in the Army, our gadget bag, our standard gadget bag was camera, 3 lenses, light meter, gray card, and squishy meter.
But they
We had
love
to-
frequency.
We had to
Sorry.
measure the squishy light.
Oh, God. I don't want to indulge Lemon. I find that guy so objectionable in the fact that he's prepared to make up, and then people are prepared to debate him. I mean, whereas someone like Bev, at least you can sort of, well, this is a guy, of course, who didn't know what a great circle was, and oh Jesus, I mean,
He knows what a great circle is.
No, he didn't. Not until 2 months ago when
Really?
I told. He said what he was that someone was discussing with him. He said, "What do you mean? That's a really big one, is it?" And then I had to explain to him about 3 months ago what a great circle. He was completely unaware what it was. He thought it was just a big one. He did not know what it was. That is how stupid this guy is, and he's gradually picking. I mean, for instance, when he talked about logical arguments, this T-shirt logic thing, and then it wasn't until Beddy told him with an argument, you can't just say if P implies Q as an argument. You then have to then state that the P is there. So an argument has to consist of something like if P implies Q, P arrow Q, P. And then you have Q. Your argument has to. He didn't understand, for instance, that there's a rule. There is the rule of the cause and effect bit, the if-then bit, and then you have to then say, well, the antecedent is true as another step, another premise, and then you have a conclusion. And so this is a guy who goes on about not understand. Well, he doesn't understand what a great circle was. He didn't understand that Theodolite could show you horizontal. He goes on about logic and didn't understand how you basically build up a proof that includes the separate points for the antecedent being true and the rule. He didn't understand that separation. I mean, okay, I basically just mean what you all know. He's an idiot and a charlatan and a moron and a dishonest wanker. But anyway, you knew that already, but I'm telling you again.
Has anybody heard from Lemon recently? Is he doing okay?
So, say again?
Has anybody heard from Lemon recently? Is he doing okay?
No,
Or did he finally go insane?
I hope he's finally gone insane.
Yeah.
Well, he always was insane. He always was insane. So if you're looking for change, it'd be.
Sorry. I hope he's finally gone insane enough to. No, I better not. I better stop now, hadn't I?
To seek help.
Yeah.
Insanity would be a mental step up from him. Up for him.
I was wondering if anybody's heard from him. He's been like disappeared in it.
Well,
Yeah.
he doesn't come to these channels anymore because he just gets beat up. But he's found somewhere where he's more praised as the smart one.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the few flat earthers I think it's impossible to talk to. I mean, if you're fighting with Nathan Oakley and Q, at least they have some basic understanding of logic. And so I do believe those are worth engaging with. But with Lemon, and I think there's a couple of others who are just simply not worth, or Demok or something. There's a couple of them out there that are just simply not worth engaging with. You just simply abuse them and then ignore them. I think there's no point in giving these people time of day because they are just prepared to make up anything.
But that's a list of equals because Gary is just as incorrigible. So there's no.
Well, Gary at least tries to draw. Didn't Gary try and show why, if you were near a building, it would appear the angular size? He understood what angular size was, for instance, which I'm not sure Lemon did. And then he drew some rubber bands and things on something to show that as you get, there's a point at which, if it goes further away, its angular size can actually. Because I can't remember now. There is a phenomenon where if you're looking up, if you're at the bottom of a building, I can't remember now what it was. There was something that he actually did correctly, and he then tried to use that as a general rule for angular size.
He never did anything correctly.
No, this one thing part of what he did was correct. Part of what he did was correct.
No, he tried to compare the upper angle to a different lower angle. For example, the upper angle of one section of the building to the lower angle of two sections of the building. That's what he tried to equate.
There was something else.
And he said, which is true, that if you're close to the building, the upper angle is more acute. And when you move back, it starts growing. But then I asked the question, when does it get bigger than the lower angle? Then he couldn't answer.
Yes, okay, but the point I reckon is he was correct in that if something's higher up, its angular size can actually increase with distance when it's close to you, and then it will get smaller again. So because of its orientation.
No, he doesn't agree about get smaller again.
If you have 2 points that are above your eye level, that the angular separation between those 2 points, if you're really close, the angular separation is 0, and if you're really far away, the angular separation is 0. But in the middle, it's larger. So it grows and then it shrinks again.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that Gary did figure out, which was if
Yes.
both points are above your eye level, that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So he did get that right. So that was the bit I'm Obviously, he got most of the other things he said wrong, and indeed he did seem to he didn't seem to understand how it got smaller. But he was correct for one small aspect of what he said, which was quite moderately sensible, was that something moving away from you horizontally that's above you can actually increase in angular size because of the orientation of the object. It is perfectly vertical. So that's the one small thing that he got right. So I do believe in that when people do think gets it right, even they're wrong 99% of the time, if they do get something right 1% of the time, you acknowledge it. And he did there. But yes, I mean, I agree with you basically. He's almost as bad as Lemon. And he's almost not worth engaging with as well. But Lemon I regard as the worst, and some other guy I can't remember now. Demok, I think, is the other one who's just completely pale. I mean, someone like Right the Hand is almost that bad.
MC Toon was on another channel recently, and they made a comparison between Gary Wybenga and Demok. Basically, they said that Gary Wybenga was the civil Demok.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, I mean, so there are some people who are not. There's just simply no point. As I say, I'm going to try and engage with SE Montreal. I've been meaning to do this for months now, to try and explain to them that you can have hump and drop at the same time, and it's not contradictory, which is their claim. And I'm hoping to just draw one diagram and say, look, these two things can exist at the same time.
Oh, he's gotten the diagram. I've given it to him. Three
Oh,
other
yeah,
people I know have given him that diagram of how it is that a sphere works, how spherical shapes work. And what's funny is it takes other flat earthers that happen to be in the conversation at the time to point out, no, SE, in this case, you're actually wrong. And that's happened a few times.
Right, well, I think there's a difference here. I'm hopefully going to be able to pin him into a corner where I'm going to be able to speak to him civilly and shove a diagram in his face and then ask him a question like, can you see these two things that coexisting in the same space on the same diagram? Therefore, they do not contradict one another. You can have both of them at the same time. And okay, so I believe if can focus him on a diagram with a picture, which he can't argue with, that I'm going to be able to convince him, and therefore his skateboarding claim, whatever it is, I'm hopefully going to help him to understand these two concepts can coexist in the same space. But yes, no doubt he has no doubt you have pointed out this to him. But I think there's a difference between pointing out to them and then shoving it in their face and then saying, right, look, there you are, those two lines there. Can you please tell me how they can be in the same diagram if you claim they can't be? And hopefully that's
right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's gotten that diagram, that specific diagram. He's gotten it.
Well, he may have been offered it, but he may not have been shoved in his face and say, right, look, SE, look at this line and look at that line. There's a difference between offering when we know what it's like. You can offer information to these people, but they don't comprehend it. You have to shove it into their face and hammer it home repeatedly, but at least 3 times if it's something they don't want to understand or they're desperately trying to reject. There's a big difference between offering up something and then expecting them to do something, take some initiative to absorb the information, and shoving it down their throat and then having no option but to accept it.
Really? That helps?
Yeah.
And 12 hours later, you're back at square one.
Yeah. Yes, that is a good point. That is a good point there from ATF Woodtender. Yes, the trouble is they have this flat Earth reset where you may have convinced them, even got them to accept something, and actually they'll say, and you can see they've actually said, yeah, okay, you actually got a good point there, although they might not put it in quite that generous terms. And then the next day they'll just simply erase it.
No.
Erase that from the explanation.
It doesn't matter what you're showing. It ends up. Let me ask you a question.
I think the best analogy I've ever given about flat earthers is it's like the 6 blind men and the elephant. Is that each flat earther specializes in one particular argument and cannot see beyond that argument. If you, no matter what you try to demonstrate to them, either scientifically or whatever, they're just going to focus on that one. And if you debunk it, then they're going to go off to another part of the elephant and get so close they can't see the whole picture of what a globe is all about.
Absolutely right. I mean, I've done this with Nathan Oakley. There's several things he used to say, including refraction, which he used to deny. And I forced him by just a compelling argument that he then gave up on that particular objection, then moved on to another one. So absolutely right. They move around, and if they find something becomes difficult to, I mean, when I'm hoping to get through this idea, for instance, gradually Brand's logic and those other Oakley types, they're starting to have a problem now. With this celestial navigation, the fact that if you've got a distance to the GP of a star, then just using simple trigonometry, you can then determine its height. And then what I saw one thing they were doing and saying, oh yeah, but that doesn't really matter. It's not really relevant. And that they can see that eventually that might become difficult for them, and they'll just simply move on to some other issue. But yes, you're absolutely right. They will.
Well,
If they find a problem is a problematic, they will then try and find something else.
No,
I was
you're wrong. You're wrong, Grampus, because yesterday we learned from Gary that in order to have a triangle, you need to see the GP. If you don't see the GP, you don't have a right angle triangle.
I was watching.
See the GP, even if it's over the horizon.
Well, if you can't see it, you don't have a triangle, no matter the reason.
Well, in which case,
to go by what Rumpus was saying, I was listening to Nathan Oakley the other day, and he was saying how people are in the comment section are saying that he's wrong about something, and he never admits that he's wrong. And then he went on to say about how one time he was wrong, and QE private messaged him and told him he was wrong, and he apologized to QE for being wrong. That was his story.
Yeah, well, he's allowed to be wrong to QE, of course, because I mean, he's taken on this whole narrative about that independent variables. Even though QE doesn't understand, you can have multiple independent variables in something. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't understand that when something's being thrown up in the air, it's accelerating downwards. He doesn't understand that a gas has got atoms in it that are just as hard as the atoms in a solid. This is a guy who doesn't understand what is he thought the second law of thermodynamics was the same thing as entropy. This is a guy who got confused about those missiles, the fact they were shooting down. I mean, there's the guy, and all that's right. He thinks that the Google Earth is a flat Earth model because the elevation diagram, the elevation profile, is got a square, has got a horizontal base.
Well,
I mean, Jesus Christ.
That was probably the most. I'm sorry. That was probably the most hilarious thing I saw when you started going to different, on this side of the Atlantic, it's at 0 feet.
Yeah.
And in New York, it's 0 feet. I just laughed my ass off at that one. That was hilarious.
Well, Huey is the guy that said, and I quote, humans don't get energy from food or water.
What?
Yeah.
What do we think?
Sure
plants or something, or what?
Because he's a nutritionist. Wasn't he a nutritionist in the army or something?
Yeah.
You must have missed. Come on, Sean. He can't have said, "Oh God, better one than this." Twice I've got a link to it. He said twice that vitamin C causes scurvy, and he said it twice.
No.
And I couldn't believe. So I thought it once. I thought he must perhaps just missed off not having it or something. I thought I misheard him. But he then said it again, exactly using that exact phrase. Vitamin C causes scurvy. Now, I don't know whether he thinks, he doesn't really mean to say that. That's not what he really thinks, and he just came out like that. But he did it twice. But, if you're going to go with what, he said, he thinks that vitamin C causes scurvy. But, I mean, I presume, given he's a nutritionist, he can't really believe that. But I just thought that was an incredible thing to make a mistake on, even if he didn't understand.
He's a nutritionist. He doesn't understand that people get energy from food. Are you serious?
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. You sure
I mean,
about
if
that,
you
Sean? I mean, even he wouldn't say that, surely.
Absolutely. I absolutely direct quote. But I think if you would have pressed him, yes.
Really, really sure.
Yeah. And I think if you would have pressed him on what you were talking about, he would have probably said, it's not vitamin C, it's lime. It's limes.
But they don't cause, but none of these things cause scurvy. It's the lack of these things that causes scurvy. That's the key thing, of course.
Yeah. The guy who figured this out is really quite good. He actually had control groups, and the one group that was getting limes, what was it, lime oranges? I forget. What's one of the other? He's getting some situations. They actually recovered so fast that they helped the other people recover from it. The guys in the other groups.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, QE is just that stupid.
Yes, good job. QE wasn't conducting that test. He must. I'm going to try and give him the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, even though he did say that vitamin C causes scurvy, I can't think that in his brain that's what he meant to say. That I do try and be objective in these things, although I'm prepared to abuse them ruthlessly for things they actually believe. But I don't believe in picking up things they just say accidentally, or they didn't mean. There's no point in attacking someone if they said something they didn't mean to say, or they misspoke. There's no point in going for someone like that. But he did say it twice, and but I must admit, I can't believe he really means it. But I'm sure he couldn't have meant what he said to you. If he did say what you said, Sean, he must have. He can't not think that, because that's so fundamental that food gives you energy. I mean, that's.
It's
Even for
PTSD
him,
might have been kicking up. You never know.
I mean, that would be just too incredible. That would be
It's
just amazing.
in. I just got told by Gary Wybenga that refraction is bullshit.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Thanks, Gary.
He presumably refraction the atmosphere. Presumably accepts refractions of lenses and things and glass.
He didn't qualify it in any way.
Just refraction as a concept is bollocks, right? Good one,
Well,
Gary.
Gary will not answer my question. I keep asking him the same question over and over again. He will not answer it. He stated that math is useless. Is useless for anything.
Good one.
So I just asked him, how do you get an angle without a protractor? How do you determine an angle without a protractor? And the answer is math. But he won't answer that, because that just.
And what do you do with that angle? Yeah, what do you do with that angle?
Well, flat earthers have always been allergic to math. I mean, math disproves. I mean, it's a language. It's a language of physics, and here they are, these guys in basic physics not speaking the language of the.
Whenever the issue of maths comes up and how useful it is, I tend to ask them the question: okay, then, how would you work out if I were to drop something, say at 10 meters high? What speed? How long would it take to hit the ground? That's quite a useful thing to know.
Not even that.
You do that with maths.
Not even that, Rumpus. I asked him if I can borrow $100. I'll pay him back.
I was going to say, let's go even more basic. Let's just ask them, how do they know they're getting the correct change when they pay for something in cash?
If you don't believe in math, loan me $100. I promise I'll pay you back.
Yeah, if your boss offers you a 4% raise, how much is that?
The thing about that being payment, that you could emulate that with rocks, though, where it's not a mathematical function. So you could argue that's, although it is obviously maths. I think there's a real world sort of, if I give you 5 rocks for your cow and I get 3 rocks back or something, and a sheep, they could argue it's sort of by sort of bartering type analogy that they don't.
Well, there's a tribe in Africa that, for the longest time, I don't know if it's still the same way, but their numbering system consisted of nothing more than and another one.
Really? I knew there were several tribes that have 1, 2, 3, and many or something.
Yeah.
Language is fun like that. But even using your rock for a cow analogy there, you're still running into, you're doing basic arithmetic. You're doing basic addition and subtraction, which is mathematics.
Yeah, I must admit, to think that 5 rocks is equal to 3 rocks plus 2 rocks, there is a sort of additional operation.
Well, I think it's a worthwhile distinction between math and arithmetic. So, yeah, arithmetic, what's my change from $1? If I have $50 and something costs $55, where am I going to get, how short am I? Yeah, that's arithmetic. But as soon as you're dealing with math, then you've got to deal with at least a multiplication and a division.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Yeah, you could argue that they object to maths, so yes, whereas they might accept arithmetic. Yeah.
But arithmetic is still mathematical functions.
Absolutely.
It is still math.
I admit that. Yes, but I think it's a worthwhile distinction in casual conversation, not a white paper. That doing math and doing arithmetic are like the difference between walking and driving a car.
Yeah, I mean, arithmetic is a subset of maths. We agreed on that, but because it is a subset. So if they confine themselves to that subset, then
let's keep it to the claim that was said and the intelligence level of the person that said it. They said that math is not useful at all.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, if you're talking about subsets and sets and things, I mean, we're obviously leaving their ability to understand what the hell's going on. Yes, I mean, that's the trouble. If you're dealing with stupid people, you can't use moderately complicated concepts like, well, yeah, arithmetic is a subset of maths, and you seem to accept arithmetic, therefore you're accepting something that's a bigger a superset of that called maths. And they would probably start claiming that, oh no, arithmetic is they would presumably claim that arithmetic is different to maths. That maths is all this square rooty calculus, what Newton did, etc., and all these complicated functions. That's the stuff that's bollocks. Of course, that's used to design their cars, bridges, and airplanes that they use, of course, and the computers, and to generate the chips and things.
These people have car loans.
The fact that someone would say is beyond me.
If you want to tie it into more of the issues they have with math and reality, usually it's about lengths and angles, distances and angles. That's where they find problems, because we find out when we measure distances for things on the surface of the Earth, we find out the Earth can't be flat. Or if we measure angles to things, we find out drop from horizontal, which means the Earth can't be flat. So if they contend math, distances and angles, and trigonometry doesn't represent reality, well, we can do things like a 412 roof, right? If we're building a roof with a certain rise and run, we need to know what materials we need in order to make that happen. That's math, lengths, and angles used in reality that are used for a definitely useful purpose. And they can't deny that stuff just because it hurts their feelings.
This just reminds me of that Bev did not know what a radian was. I think Blue highlighted this. I think caught the same thing as well. To work out how many radians are in something, you need to know the distance to it. He did not know what a radian. Again, this is a guy who supposedly understands geometry. Well, of course, he doesn't understand the analytical geometry. Anything to do with numbers. The only thing he seems to be vaguely familiar with is Euclid, which does not have any numbers in it at all, and is therefore not useful in any way whatsoever to anybody or their dog. The only geometry we actually use to do something usefully is analytical. Well, there's differential geometry, but you have to have numbers to things to make them useful. If you just have these concepts, that's just useless.
Right. They didn't pay attention in school. They didn't study. They didn't put their nose to the grindstone. They failed themselves by refusing to educate themselves. But then they want to grow up and argue with people who did.
Yeah, I think it's a case of that. Just as Stephen Hawking was saying that that anything from an alien. Sorry, no, it was not Stephen Hawking. It was Arthur C. Clarke. That anything that from an alien civilization would appear to be magic to us, and therefore you can dismiss it as something that's not real. From their point of view, the maths we do is magic.
Technology.
Anything of sufficient technology to the uneducated would be as magic.
Right, and that's how they perceive what we talk about when we talk about calculus or something. I mean, but Bev doesn't understand what a radian is, doesn't understand that, doesn't even agree the existence of spherical geometry, can't understand the more or less fewer dimensions. When we took, as far as they're concerned, we're speaking in gibberish, and it's very easy if you don't understand something to dismiss it.
That's why I think it's hilarious when people like Austin Whitsitt call scientists like wizards, because I mean that's what the ignorant people of the village called the smart guy, the wizard. He's the guy who understood things. And so basically when they call like scientists wizards, they're admitting that they're uneducated rabble.
Yeah.
Give me a second, guys. Well, huge shout out to Judy Bassett. She sent me a $50 PayPal.
Whoa.
Wow. Excellent. Thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate that.
That's very kind of Judy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think Alan was trying to get in too. Alan, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just trying to say what Jared also said, that it was any sufficiently advanced technology is as to magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't been around for a while. I've been very busy at work. I don't have very much to offer. Sadly, I'm really tired. I don't know if you know this. I'm a forester, right? So I've been on a course this week dealing with wind-blown trees, how to deal with wind-blown trees, like dangerous trees. So I've been like in a forest all week with a chainsaw. I am fucking shattered. I am fucking shattered. So, so I can't remember actually the last time I was this tired. But I just wanted to say, like, I do listen in. I don't join in, but I do listen to you guys. You know, so I'm still here, and I always enjoy listening to these kind of chats and stuff. You know, and also, you know, I'd like to hear you guys discuss is a theory that I find quite compelling. Just on the back of what you were talking about just there, is the dark forest theory. I don't know if all of you are aware of the dark forest theory. It's a theory that explains the Fermi paradox, which is, you know, the Fermi paradox is, where are they? Why don't we have contact with some kind of alien civilization? And the dark forest theory is that if you're a hunter or an individual in a dark forest, you shut the fuck up and you don't make any sound because you don't want to be heard. And you stealthily move through the forest without making any sound and announcing your presence. And it's quite a compelling reason for the reason why we don't have we haven't had any contact from other civilizations, because you know, it would be a clever thing to do.
Well, it's a bit like Star Trek saying they don't want to interfere with the development of a planet, and of course, if you've got the ability to effectively be invisible, that would be the best way of doing it.
Well,
it's more sinister than that. It's like you don't want to be found because you might get fucking colonized and destroyed.
Yeah, let's think about the reality of this. In all likelihood, our first interaction with an extrasolar civilization would be like Independence Day, not Star Trek.
But would it? I mean, you know, it's I mean, Christ. I mean, I don't know if you've been paying.
I'm talking about intent. I'm talking about intent, not necessarily the outcome. Because if they have interstellar travel, they're leagues beyond us in likely every form of technology, so we'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, contact is not going to be a good thing.
Yes.
But I mean, like,
yeah, and if they're already on the move, they're on the move because they.
But if you think about, I mean, we are, we're way beyond interstellar travel. We're way beyond like intergalactic travel. So if there is a civilization that has actually mastered that, think about the.
Sorry, John. What do you mean by we are beyond that?
Wait a minute. Think about just how civilized a civilization would need to be. Think of the shit show that's gone on in Westminster the last few days, Rumpus.
Yeah,
we would need to be an extremely civilized, sorted out, decent society to actually get to that level. So I would like to think that a civilization that has actually mastered that technology and actually lived that long to actually allow that technology to progress would inherently be actually quite civilized.
Well, that's the Star Trek thing, isn't it?
I disagree with that because it's not the morality that would drive that sort of thing. It would be the unity of the society, not necessarily any measure of goodness or other intent metric. It is entirely based on the unity of the society. And that's what's holding us back, is the fact that we are still a bunch of nation states that at their core can't fucking get along. Even with all the alliances and everything there, we cannot get along with anyone on our own planet. That is what is holding us back from the grander endeavors. It's not compassion, it's not benevolence, it's unity. Just the actual act of the entire species acting as one entire species instead of a bunch of little enclaves.
Yeah, well, maybe we should pray for Independence Day. That would make us unite, wouldn't it?
Well, no, I think I think we're doing rather better than we would have to go if we went through an Independence Day thing. And I agree with you. I think any civilization that was capable of intergalactic travel or interstellar travel probably would be benevolent, and it's like a Star Trek thing. But I agree with your point. I think that. Yeah, unless they were coming here for resources. I mean, this is all the classic story, sci-fi storyline, isn't it? Some civilization that needs to come. If the Earth had resources that they could get at and wanted, is the classic sort of some of the Star Trek storylines and other sci-fi things. Then yes, if their civilization was coming to a crunch and they needed some resources on the Earth, then yes, I suspect they might come over here and take it. But if they were resource fine, then there'd be no reason to come to some underdeveloped. It's like us, why would we not go in places like New Guinea, which are incredibly backward? You could argue that this has got a similar scenario here. Why don't we go and beat them all up? Well, now we've got to the stage where we're really relatively happy. Unless they had something like oil and gold in massive quantities, then we're prepared to say, carry on. You do your own thing, even if you are a bit underdeveloped. We'll just sort of actually help you rather than anything else. So I think it's
so kind of like small-minded. I mean, like if you could perhaps like harness the power of a star. If you could actually, if you knew much more about physics than we do, and you could actually travel between solar systems, maybe even travel between galaxies.
I mean, that's the reason we don't have contact, because the speed of light is what it is. If the speed of light was, 1 billion times faster, then yes, we probably would be having contact. But the speed of light prevents us from doing interstellar travel. Yeah, but I think that's the cause. Yeah, but you were arguing your Dark Forest thing. The reason we don't have an alien experience is because the speed of light is quite slow. That's the reason.
You've got
do not have contact.
It's an uncomfortable fact that our knowledge, our understanding of physics is in its infancy, Rumpus.
Yeah,
right.
But my point still stands. The reason we don't have contact with alien civilization is because the speed of light is so slow. If it was really super fast, near instantaneous, then yes, we would be probably.
That's my point. Hold on. What's your reference? How do you know it's infancy? How do you know it's not the peak of physics?
Speed of light may be slow, but what about time?
It's happened before.
It's happened before. I don't care what happened before. How do you know that now it's not where it ends?
It's happened before. I mean,
I don't care. Before we went from trees to vehicles, to airplanes, to spaceships. Great. How do you know it's not the end? Where it all ends? Because there's no any other possibility to go any faster than we go today.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say. I mean, It's happened before.
I
that,
know it happened
you know,
before, but that doesn't
that
mean that we didn't reach
I'm agreeing with
the
you.
peak. So
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
John,
agreeing with you.
we're hitting the laws of physics here. Just like there's mass is a fundamental part of traveling around, and now we're reaching the problems of having something that's massive and therefore is limited by the speed of light.
No, it doesn't. It's not limited by the speed of light, because when you start to get even at fractions of the speed of light, any grain of dust go through your spaceship from the beginning to the end.
Yes.
Doesn't stop because there's no force that can stop it.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, when you're at any significant factor fraction of the speed of light, you get into highly kinetic energy type of collisions, and that's where there is the theoretical drive, the Alcubierre drive, that is on the face of it potentially possible, and that's where you get into other issues of survivability of the craft from these highly energetic collisions that are going to happen.
What's the basis of
Remember,
that
the
drive?
speed of sound was an absolute mathematical limit until Chuck Yeager.
Yeah.
Yeah, beyond the speed of
So
sound.
just think for a second. Just think. Imagine you're pre-Einstein, right? You're like totally driven by Newtonian physics, and that's how everything worked. And everyone's like, "Yeah, okay, that's how everything works." And along comes Einstein.
And then you look at Mercury.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
John, you don't know.
I mean,
but John, what you're saying is that, and what the point that Chaika was pointing out, that you have these hurdles we get over these steps. That doesn't necessarily mean it's like it's a turkey. Everything's been fine today, therefore it's going to be fine tomorrow. The sort of induction. You can't get, or the fact that the Earth is the sun rose yesterday does not mean to say it's going to rise tomorrow. You can't say, that's the basic Chaika's basic point, is that you can't know that there's going to be another leap in terms of our technological development. It could be that we're reaching the end of the laws of physics.
There obviously is. There obviously is.
Well, I mean, there are things we don't know about.
There obviously
I didn't see much advance in technology in the past 100 years.
Like, think about, I don't want to like talk about fairy tales and fucking whatever, but there are some things in particularly in quantum physics which are extremely enticing and unexplained, and we have yet to marry relativity with quantum physics.
Correct.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
So
and things like quantum physics, you have the ability to, for instance, we believe that one electron can, an entangled electron, if it was the other side of the universe, would be able to affect an electron the other side of the universe. If they were entangled and you fixed one, then it would instantaneously change the other. But there are things like that happen that do give you sort of ideas. But unfortunately, you can't transmit information faster than the speed of light.
Not with our current understanding. And that's the thing is,
I mean, it's to me. I think quantum entanglement is one of the most interesting things that I think I've ever heard. I mean, like
Einstein rejected it. You see, Einstein.
Well, yeah,
it so amazing. He rejected it.
He said, I can't believe that God plays dice with the universe.
Well, that's a slightly separate thing. Yeah, no, he did say that, but that's a slightly separate thing from this idea that two particles can basically be communicating with one another across the universe, in effect, instantaneously.
But
it's not transmission of information. It's
correct.
No,
determinism.
It's not. Yeah,
it's about determinism.
That's the thing. I think the thing that makes quantum entanglement even more interesting is that it doesn't appear to be the transmission of information. It's almost like it's a predetermined destiny.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that. No, it's not that.
There is
a random thing.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's if you were to for instance, imagine we've got two entangled particles. We don't know what the spin of an electron is a classic example they give. One, and you then go and measure the spin of one at one side of the universe. Then quantum physics dictates that the other one will then have the opposite spin if they're entangled particles. But you can't make one of them spin one way round than the other, and it's a random thing as to whether or not the one you measure is spinning away one way or the other. That's fundamental to quantum. So you claimed it was destined. It's not destined. It's not predestined. That's
By
the
the
whole
way,
point.
hey,
I
Blue,
think we're
everyone.
kind of
Yeah, guy here.
cross talking. I think you misunderstood what I meant.
Well, there's nothing predestined about anything. I suppose you could argue that we know from the origins of the universe, if you know enough information about it, how it will develop. If that's what you mean by predestiny.
No.
Okay, well, I don't understand what you mean by predestined then. What is predestined?
What I mean is that if you have a particle that has a spin one way, and you have a twin somewhere else with spin another way,
You
the
don't.
only thing that can
You
happen.
don't. But you don't.
Say
While
again?
there are two particles, they're in a superposition. They are in both all state all the time. The only way to know the state is to measure it. You can't dictate what the state will be. You must measure at least one of them.
Yeah, and then the other one will be the other spin.
Oh
But
yeah,
you
I see what you mean.
You can't determine which one is going to be which, and it's not predestined. It's random. Quantum mechanics is the thing that we're getting back to the thing that Einstein did say. He didn't like the randomness of it. He didn't accept that. He thought there was it was predictable. There were all these hidden variables and things that would tell you exactly what was going on about the status of an electron. It was an entangled electron that was away. He believed you could work it out in isolation what it would be, and then but ultimately he's shown to be wrong. The quantum mechanics is all about probability functions, and this is so. For instance, a photon going through a glass, whether it would be reflected or not, is just a random thing. Or in a double slit experiment, you don't know where each individual photon is going to end up. You can only assign a probability to whether or not it's going to go off to the right or the left or whatever.
But anyway, I'm too tired to talk about quantum entanglement, to be honest.
Man Devil's got it right. He says you can extrapolate the entire universe by mapping the molecular structure of a single cupcake. Anybody does the was it the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe will get that.
But the long and the short of it is that that quantum entanglement has been proven, I think, by this point, to operate either instantaneously or
instantaneously,
many times faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, okay, could be. Yes, they believe it to be
Right. So that whatever that is, that's another kind of facet of reality that appears to break, relativity.
Well, that's why Einstein rejected it. That was the thing he couldn't cope. This spooky action at a distance, he called it, and he was traveling faster than the speed of light, which, of course, given the fact that he invented this limit, and he was obsessed with special relativity and general relativity, he did not like this instantaneous nature of that effect, and that's why he created the EPR paradox. He believed at the time, and then it required this instantaneous effect, and then was it Bell's inequality or something? They then demonstrated that's exactly what was happening. That there was this instantaneous change faster than the speed of light. If you measured something, then a corresponding particle that was determined by a collapse of the Schrödinger wave function was an instantaneous thing. But there's the transmission of information. You can't then change it yourself and then cause something else to respond. You can't say, I'll do this thing over here, and it will do the same thing or some inverted version of what I'm doing over there. Unfortunately, you're not in control of that, because that would involve the transfer of information greater than the speed of light, and then that you can't do.
But I mean, I think it's just really naive and a bit conceited When you think of how long has it been since
what thinking we can't we can't do things like travel fast and speed light. You're saying that's conceited.
Yeah, I think
thinking
it
that
is.
is
I
limiting
mean,
our
like
view.
think about the Industrial Revolution. We're talking maximum, like, I don't know, like a couple of 100 years.
Yeah,
max.
but you're falling into Chaiki's point. Just because it's happened in the past, it doesn't mean to say it's going to happen in the future. We may have reached the limit. We're now discovering the limits of mass and general relativity. We may be reaching limits that are physics determined and not just technology determined. But we don't know. Yes, I agree. But it's an opinion. Chaiki's just saying you might be wrong. Well, we don't know, and that's the answer. We may have reached the limit, or we may not have done. You can't say no, we haven't reached the limit. You can just say, well, we don't know.
Well, I think it's unreasonable to say that. Yes, I think we've reached the limit.
No. Chaiki wasn't saying that. He's saying we could have reached the limit. We don't know, but it's possible.
No, I just don't think that's true.
You're being a flat earther now. No, it's not possible to reach the limit. That's not possible. Not.
I'm being a flat earther. Are you saying?
Yeah. To say it's not logical.
Certainly not intentionally.
You have nothing to base it on, yet you say it's not logical. Logical based on what?
What I've got to base it on.
What do you have a higher reference? Do you know a higher technology that we haven't reached yet?
No. What I have to base
how do you know?
What I have to base it on is that relativity is in no way whatsoever married with quantum physics.
Yes, something we don't understand. You're right. There's something we don't understand about the universe. There are lots of things we don't understand about how the way reality works. Agreed. But that doesn't necessarily mean to say that we can work out a way to move faster or go between instantaneously or near instantaneously between stars at stellar distances. It does not mean to say that's going to happen definitely. Just because we don't understand something about A doesn't mean to say that B is going to become an objective that we can get.
I just think it's really short-sighted to say.
Well, no one's saying no. He's just saying we don't know. He's just saying we don't know, John. He's not saying it isn't. He's just saying we don't know.
To say, right, okay. The universal speed limit is the speed of light.
No, well, we're not.
And that's it.
That's as much as we know at the moment, but it could be. It could be the universal speed limit, but we don't know that. But it appears to be at the moment. But people are going to do research into finding out that it isn't, and some other way of moving around in wormholes or something. But it could be. That's all that Chaiki was saying. You don't know. I mean, you're using a thing of induction because we've had all this progress in technology and understanding science that it's going to carry on to the point where we can travel, I don't know, instantaneously. Well, that may be true, but it may not be. You don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what
maybe
science
someone
is
will invent warp drive one day, but so far they didn't. The metals are the same metals that we had for thousands of years. I see rockets. They are the same rockets that we used 100 years ago. Not 100. How much was it? Let's say 60 years. So nothing has changed in technology since, right? We don't have better metals now that when we reach speeds close to the speed of light, and I'm talking about 5% even.
Yeah, but I mean,
that you start to get the cosmic radiation, what we call the particles, becoming wind, becoming thicker than the atmosphere.
I just think that like post industrial revolution. And we've done amazing things, as a civilization. Amazing things.
Based on,
but we've only kind of really done it in like a couple of 100 years.
Well,
can you imagine?
Have to make a correction. I do have to make a correction. While metallurgy has only had incremental increases since the 60s, there are other technologies that have seen massive improvements, including communication technology, navigation technology, computer-based technologies that are dramatically more capable, but also more sensitive now than they were in, say, 1965.
They
Yeah,
don't
but
have us moving
but
faster
you're talking
from
about
one point to
technology, but
another.
you're not talking about the laws of physics are still the same, that we're governing that, and those are the things that are limiting our ability to jump between stars. The fact that we've got this technology is moving along is not changing the laws of physics, which we seem to be, seem to understand.
I just really think that we're kind of it's just a bit kind of naive and conceited to think
No, John. No one's saying you're not right. No one's saying that we're not going to be able to develop, but you can't guarantee it. That's all that Chaiki was pointing out.
Of course,
well,
you can.
But don't say to us we're saying no. We're just saying, well, you're just assuming that things will develop. And at the moment, the laws of physics, at the moment, our understanding is that you can't. We've got a problem jumping between stars. Now that could change, but no one's saying it can't. Just saying it's not looking, not looking likely at the moment.
I may be wrong about this, but hasn't an Einstein-Rosen bridge been confirmed mathematically?
Yeah, the EPR thing, the EPR paradox, and the Bell's experiment. They showed that yes, if you're talking about. So the thing that Einstein claimed that was a problem, the instantaneous change between two particles a distance apart using this action at a distance like, yes, that's been shown to be true. We've been shown that information, not information, sorry.
It's like a wormhole.
Oh, the wormhole thing. Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's been shown. There's all sorts of physics I've looked at that says they're not going to work for us. There's something about a wormhole that means the more you try and go through it, the longer it gets, or something. I can't remember. The energy required to go through it is going to increase as you try and go through it. And it'll sort of stretch infinitely as you try to do it. So, in fact, there's a lot of good science that says, in fact, wormholes can't work.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with creating wormholes, but they are possible, I think, is what the mathematics prove, right?
Yeah, the mathematics proves the wormholes are possible. The problem is the opening and closing of the wormhole that creates, you'd have to have so much, massive amounts of energy, more than there's probably energy in the entire galaxy.
That doesn't mean they're not there naturally, though.
Right.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing is you have the mathematic possibility of the wormholes that could be traversable if technology advances enough, just like FTL, faster than light travel, is theoretically, mathematically possible if we can find ways to produce, manage, control the energies required, because that's where I previously mentioned the Alcubierre drive, which is the closest analog to what has been depicted as the Star Trek version of FTL, creating a bubble. So relative speed of the craft in the immediate space within the bubble, it's motionless. But because of the effects of that bubble, you are compressing the space in front of you and stretching it behind you to ride a wave that, because of that deformation, that is what's allowing the travel to be faster than the speed of light. Mathematically possible, but technologically and in reality not possible at this moment.
We're not sure how to produce at this point.
White holes are also possible mathematically, but none has been observed yet.
It has been observed.
White holes?
As an
I don't
astronomer.
recall.
As an astronomer.
Well, do you know about the white hole?
stretching? Sorry?
Do you know about a white hole?
I can't hear you.
Do you know about a white hole? Do you have a number? It's
a white hole? No.
White hole, yeah. White hole is the opposite of black hole.
Yeah, no, that's been trashed. That idea.
Can I just say, as a keen, I don't know if you can remember, but
yeah, we can remember you're an astronomer, John. Yeah, we know that you're a good astronomer. You're president of a society of Edinburgh Society of Astronomy or something. So yeah, we know that.
But the space space itself stretches faster than the speed of light.
Yes.
Right, LIGO
That's-
suspected.
Oh, really?
that's,
That would be
that-
new. That would be new. How do you know?
How do I know?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Well,
the whole
Last
basis
I
of the
heard,
Hubble constant and galaxies receding from us, etc., etc., and it occurs at a faster speed than the speed of light, but it's not actually breaking the
Yeah.
sort of laws of relativity.
Yeah. Correct.
well,
I mean,
what do you mean by
you know,
stretches? Stretches.
Well, space, the dimensions of space are increasing at the observable limit we've got now. We can see, obviously, we believe to be 13.7 billion light years as the edge of the universe, observable universe. But we now believe, obviously, while we can see that light was 13. If that light is 13. Since that light was emitted, it's now 13.7 billion light years has passed. 13 billion years has passed, and therefore that's carried on accelerating. We believe all the equations and all the physics suggest that those things are now moving away from us at greater than the speed of light. I'm afraid, Chaiki. That's current orthodoxy. I'm afraid.
The reason, the reason why that doesn't violate general relativity is or special relativity either. Anyway, is because of the great distances involved. Relative to us, something that distance away is appearing to move faster than the speed of light. From our perspective, from something in between us and that perspective, that may not be true, and that's why it doesn't violate general relativity.
And as you said earlier, Doofus, there's no transfer of information greater than the speed of light when the universe is expanding.
oh, it's Doofus Manfred here.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, what he's.
Well,
Actually, there's a lot of loss of energy.
I don't think I've ever spoken to Doofus before, so that's
You have now.
That's a pleasure.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was there were a few occasions, I think about 8 or 9 months ago, but it's been a while.
Yes, I mean, Doofus, you made the point about the transfer of information, and that's not violated. The speed of light for transfer of information is not violated by the expansion of the universe being greater than the speed of light.
Conservation of energy is violated.
No,
because
because that's getting complicated. Dark energy. No, it's not actually, because although dark energy the space being created, which is filled with dark energy, the actual negative potential of the universe actually is getting bigger by the same amount. So in fact, they believe that dark energy is being created directly in proportion to the increase in the negative gravitational potential energy of the universe. So there is no violation of the of energy. So yes, but it does look superficially. In fact, I asked someone at a meeting in the New Scientist Live event in London 2 years ago, does not this dark energy lark of creating space with energy in it violate the... He didn't actually know the answer to it, actually, this chap who's a PhD in cosmology or something, but I've subsequently... Sorry?
Photon, the
Photon?
started at the Big Bang, after the Big Bang. And after the...
Sorry. Talk about all the cosmic microwave background radiation that was created 300,000 years after the Big Bang, when all those was it like the event of recombination or something? Mm-hmm. So what are you talking about photons about?
It was back then it was orange, but now it's microwave.
Yeah. So
it's loss of energy.
Right. So you're saying that the photons that have come from there have lost energy. Where's it gone? I can't give you an immediate answer to that one, Chaiki.
I don't think anyone knows where it's
I think it
gone.
does. No, I think that's a simple question. I think the idea that space is stretching and therefore the photon frequency has increased as well. Where's that energy gone? I'm sure there's a simple answer to that one. That one doesn't sound to me fundamentally too tricky to sort out, but I can't give you an answer.
It probably is.
I think that's an easier one than some of the stuff we've been talking about. I'll get back to you on that one.
I thought that was down to redshift.
Yes, that's what he's saying. He's saying that these photons that were one colour have now become redshifted. Where's the energy gone? So they're redshifted. So where's the energy gone that they had? If they start off as being blue, they're now red. That they've lost energy. Where's that energy gone? He's
don't know
asking.
about blue. They were then orange.
But whatever. I'm just picking a color. So imagine they start off at blue. They're now red, or in fact they're now microwave, 3K temperature. And he's just saying, well, hold on. All we've done is stretched the space between them. Where's the energy gone that they had? He's asking if it's a photon.
It's just that the wavelength is shifted.
Yeah.
But
So so where's the energy gone? They had one energy. They've got that less. Where's the energy gone that they had? He's asking, which is a reasonable question.
I think the thing is the energy didn't decrease. It's an energy density over the greater volume.
Yeah.
No, but each individual photon has got less energy, hasn't it? It started off being blue, say, and it's now microwave. So an individual photon has lost energy. So we're just about one photon. Let's just worry about one photon. It started off blue. It's now microwave. It has no longer got the same energy that it had before. Where did that energy go? I think is the question that
But isn't that just
Chucky
this
was asking.
wavelength being increased?
Yes, and that's a loss of energy. The energy of a photon is directly related to its wavelength and its frequency. And if the wavelength increases, it's lost energy. Where's the energy gone? He's asking.
That's interesting.
And I can't give an immediate answer, but I suspect it's quite simple.
I know that
something...
say like blue light hitting the gold leaf experiment where it'll collapse the gold leaf.
I'm not familiar with that one.
They statically charge a couple of gold leaves. They repel each other. You shine red light on it and nothing happens. But if you shine blue light or I guess infrared, it collapses.
Are you talking about the photoelectric effect, in effect? Is that what you're effectively referring to? The fact that it's ionite, you certain frequencies, you can ionize electrons and make them shift in energy levels. Is that really what you're talking about here? Because obviously, red light won't do that. This is the thing that Einstein proposed in 1905, and what he got the Nobel Prize for determining that it doesn't matter how many low energy photons you fire at a piece of metal, a semiconductor. If you fire high energy photons, then they will cause atoms to ionize through the electrons leaping up electron levels. Is that not the thing you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
No, they not
documentary about electricity, and I can't remember the scientist's name who presented the documentary, but he showed, how shining red light on some gold leaf that have been statically repelling each other did nothing. However, shining blue light on it did it, and it was I think they called it like the blue light paradox or something like that. And he also demonstrated with throwing red ping pong balls at milk cans, and as opposed to throwing golf balls at milk cans, and the golf balls were able to knock the milk cans over, but their ping pong balls were way too weak to knock them over.
That's the photoelectric effect that Rumpus was talking about.
Yes.
Because it's a quanta of energy, there isn't enough energy to knock the electrons around in the red light, whereas there is in the, I say blue, but probably more likely UV end of the spectrum.
I mean, I remember back in the day, there was on computers, there was the RAM BIOS chip that you had a little sticker on. If you peel the sticker off and shine some infrared light on it, you can reset the BIOS.
Well, actually,
no, that's UV.
That's UV, and that's
UV. Yes,
that's UV erasable. ROM.
Programmable read-only memory.
Yeah. I've used it.
Yeah, same here.
But I think that applies to the same principle.
Yeah, Victoria made a point, and that's the Doppler shift, which indeed is what we're talking about, this redshift of space. And you can argue then again, just by the fact you're moving away, you're an ambulance that's going away from you, and it's changed the energy of the sound that's coming towards you. It's because of a lower frequency. I'm sure there's a simple answer to this. Yes, but the
stretching.
The energy is spread out over a larger period of time.
But it's not but the photons aren't changing in size. I don't think the photons. Oh, perhaps they do. Do photons? I can't remember now. Photons are different size. I think are photons are different sizes for different frequencies. I'm not even sure photons have a real size. No, I think they do actually.
No, but the size of the wave is the distance they have to travel. Would that cause the loss of energy you're speaking of?
I don't think
There are.
photons have a definite size unless you
Yeah,
I don't know if they have
unless you talk
definite
about
size, but I
wavelengths.
know that my microwave, if I put the phone in, I can have the Wi-Fi working, but I can't have the 4D working.
We're talking about wavelength size now. That has
Yeah, that's different.
The wavelength
There's a difference
size
between a wavelength size and the photon size.
would determine if it can go through the holes in the...
That's the wavelength.
Same size photons, but a longer wavelength. Those photons need to travel a longer path to traverse that wavelength. So would that be the decrease of energy there?
Yeah, I'm there's something simple I'm missing here. I mean, like the Doppler shift. That's like I say, an
I don't know.
ambulance going.
That, so.
But a photon. I'm
If
not
we're
quite sure how
talking
you
about-
stretch a photon.
If we're talking about like a Doppler analogy, that energy from that sound wave as that ambulance is passing by, the energy is spread out over a longer period of time, and you can almost make that work the same way for an object that's redshifted because of how fast it is moving away from you. Eventually, the light will take longer and longer to reach you. The energy is taking a longer period of time to reach you.
No, that's not that. It doesn't matter how far the
only
photon
appears
goes.
like
It doesn't lose energy just because of the distance it travels.
Well, wait a minute. If the energy is spread out further,
No, not an individual
entering-
photon. Don't get confused between the inverse square law, which relates to the number of photons, the photon density, but an individual
I'm not talking about the
photon
inverse square law.
Sorry, you're not. Yeah, I think, but I
Yeah,
think
I'm not talking
Albino
about the
was.
inverse square law.
Yeah, I know, but Albino I think was about to, so I was just nipping that in the bud. Yeah. So
I'm talking about the photons that reach you. They reach you over a longer period of time.
it doesn't. No, that doesn't. No, the photon. If you saw a photon, if a photon collided with you after traveling 1 billion light years or 2 billion years, it should not have lost any energy, assuming the space in between, which is the phenomenon we're talking about. It doesn't lose energy in traveling, providing it doesn't interact with anything. Except, of course, we've got this strange stretchy space thing that isn't making it lose energy, which is what's confusing me. But and in theory, I believe that a photon doesn't wear out or something. It's not like trying to get through the air. It just carries on through space, and it will retain that energy unless the space is doing something. There's something about the space here that's by changing as it's going through the space is changing and stretching, that it's somehow causing this photon to lower its frequency with a redshift, and then that must mean there's a loss of energy. So there must be, but the photon itself is not wearing out, which is what you're implying.
Right, but when that photon left its source, if that source is moving away from you, it would inherently have less energy or a longer wavelength.
That's true, but that wouldn't change over time.
No,
whatever speed
Yeah, it doesn't.
he left relative to you, whatever Doppler shift it had, that's what you'll see. That
The only thing that changes, say when light leaves the sun, comes to us, is the wavelength. I mean, like, you know, if it or say like it was a vast distance that actually did encourage some redshift. The only thing that changes is the wavelength because of the stretching of space. Nothing happens to a photon apart from
Yes, I mean,
that.
yeah, this is a bit weird. I mean, if you had say a light source, say a blue light source, and then it was going away from you near the speed of light, it would change its color because it's like an ambulance going away from you. So that means, which means it is affecting so that if it's moving away from you, then that is actually changing the energy of the photons, which is confusing me now because
It changes the energy of the photon because the wavelength changes.
Yes, my point. Yes, but how do you? a photon, as I understand, is just like a particle of energy, and it's going to leap away. And I've now decided I don't understand how something moving away, a light source moving away from you, changes color. I've now decided I don't even understand that now, because because we do know that. Hold on,
Why it
we
loses
do know.
momentum?
Hold on. We do know that things moving away from us get a redshift, and they in other words, that changes the colors of the photons that we experience. And so even a rotation. So for instance, we know that just the way galaxies rotate, they're slightly redshifted coming one way. The rotation of galaxies blue shifted the other way. So that's actually changing the energy of the photons that reach us. And now I've just decided I don't understand how that operates.
But you've got to understand how that works. It's so fundamental.
Yeah, I know that's a Doppler shift. If it was simple,
think
simple sound, I can understand the principle that just wavelengths are being compressed and increased. I understand that, but a photon is an individual particle of energy, and I don't understand if it starts off at blue. And it's moving towards me, and it emits a blue photon. I don't quite understand now how the speed with which the thing is moving is affecting this packet of energy, which had started off life as a blue.
Do you need to
light always travels at the speed of light.
Yes, we know that.
One of the really kind of amazing things, amazing sort of realizations that I had about just how the universe was formed. You know the cosmic microwave background radiation, right?
Yes.
Right. So that's microwaves. Now.
Yes.
That's like waves that are a discernible kind of distance.
Yeah, they've got 3K temperature now because the space is stretched in between us. Yes.
Yeah. So, but when that was emitted.
Yeah, it was a free hot visible light. Yeah.
When visible light was emitted, you're talking about a wavelength of nanometers.
Yeah.
Okay. And because
now it's down at 3K. Yeah, I understand the effect. Yeah, we've got light started off as visible. Due to the expansion of the universe, has now become 3K and much lower frequency. I've now decided I don't understand. If it was sound, I could understand that, but because photons are packets. Well, it is the same principle, yes, but I don't understand how it now matches to the quantum level of a photon, which is emitted, and then how that's changing in energy just because of the velocity of the thing that it's with. It's like firing a bullet. It's like if you're firing a bullet, for instance, the velocity of the bullet. I suppose that is going to change.
All right, hold on.
The velocity isn't changing.
This could be solved by just flipping it around a bit. So something that's receding. In the distant observable universe is receding that far, and obviously that frequency has redshifted that much. Now, what if we were to, as an observer, try to come closer to that recession, try to match that velocity? It'd come back blue shift closer to where it was, or there would be less redshifted. The energy didn't change. You changed your time. It's about relativity in this case.
Yes, but I think that's probably it. Yes, I mean, for instance, let's suppose we've got a 3K. Yeah, indeed. If you've got a 3K photon coming towards you, and you race towards it, then you would see it as visible again. So in other words, if you were going near the speed of light towards these 3K photons, you would perceive them as being visible again. So, which I think that's the point you're making, Doofus, isn't it? It's your relative speed, and therefore, if I could affect them, change their color by charging towards them.
No. This is
I think and your time is changing relative to that distant object too, which means that you're seeing it at a different frequency.
Once the photon left the source, you don't care about the speed of the source.
Exactly, that's my point. That's why we couldn't understand. But yes, I mean, you can argue then, if I'm charging towards a photon that's of one color. And then it become an increased color. So if I charge a significant frequency of a light towards a photon that's coming towards me, and it's got one color, I'm going to see it as bluer. It's going to be blue shifted. And then you can argue, where's that energy come from to make that photon be bluer? When it comes to your eye,
from
Where's the
the
energy come from? Which is
change.
the same, which will be the same answer for the where's the energy gone we were talking about earlier when it
No,
was
it
started off
wouldn't.
with blue. Well, it would. Well, I
No,
think
it
it's a similar.
wouldn't because the photon left. What the photon receding from us? No, it's moving towards us all the time
Yes, at the speed of light. Yes.
at the speed of light.
Yes, but
It
do you
is
not agree that
going
if I charge towards this photon, it would become bluer? Do you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay, good.
but
So where so the
that's
photon is therefore
different.
The
so its
That's
energy in
different.
our
from you
frame of
charging
reference has
towards it.
increased.
We didn't change our speed. We're at the same place we were before.
No, but but I'm just pointing out that if you were to charge at a velocity as fractional speed of light towards a photon, it would appear to change color to you, and therefore it's gained energy in effect from your point of view. But you can argue you've gained, you've.
No,
I'm trying to work out where the energy is coming from and
no,
going to here.
no.
That's
But
from,
It's not
from the moment.
the energy hasn't
going
changed.
towards it.
You've changed your time. You see the frequency as different.
Yes,
No,
which
it's because the momentum. You gained momentum in one direction. The photon.
momentum's got nothing to do with this.
Yeah, yes, it is.
No, it's velocity.
That's
No, you're
all that
confusing momentum and
No,
velocity.
the photon is the same velocity always. Doesn't
Yes,
change.
agreed.
The only other things the photon has is a momentum, and
Yeah,
momentum.
well, that's not relevant. That's not relevant
It
to our
is
discussion.
relevant. That's
No,
what
it's not.
caused That's what caused the red and blue shift.
No, it's not nothing. It's the velocity. Momentum is just
It's
it's got
The
nothing to do with
velocity
the
relative to the photon
you
didn't
guys are
change
coming at
ever.
this from
I think I have a silly
you're both
analogy.
coming at this from different angles to try and arrive at the same answer. The momentum is relevant, and the speed of the velocity, the speed of light is the same, but the momentum is still relevant. When you're changing your velocity, you're changing your time. The frequency changes too. It's not a
changing
change
your
in
time.
energy.
I don't understand. That's not that phrase doesn't make any sense. You're changing your time. That doesn't make
Well,
any
here,
sense.
If you're accelerating towards something in order to blue shift the light that you see, that's your time is also changing
That doesn't make any
because
sense.
relativity.
Right,
Right,
it's true.
you're
It's
not
true.
your time does not go by the same as anything else that isn't accelerating towards that thing. Your time is at a different rate now.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah,
a
time-
relativistic effect.
Time dilation.
someone mentioned firing a bullet, so I think I have a silly analogy to go along with that. If you guys allow me a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if you fire a bullet from a gun once every second, the velocity of the bullet coming out of that gun is going to stay the same. Now, if I jump in the back of a pickup truck and drive off at 100 miles an hour, still firing your bullet once every second, the space between each bullet is going to increase.
Correct. Yeah, the frequency will change. Yeah.
That's your shift, the redshift.
Yeah.
And you're
Like
losing the energy
but-
by traveling away, or
Yeah, my problem is that the photons are individual things. So it's
Right, and the
each
bullets are
photon has a
individual. They haven't
frequency.
lost
So it's not it's not the photon. So I'm getting confused between
And frequency.
firing
What is
photon.
frequency? Let's
Sorry?
go back to Dufus. What is frequency?
right. Each individual bullet hasn't lost any
No,
velocity.
never mind. No, it does.
The same rate.
It does. But
Yeah, but
the
my problem is that
frequency, your
photons
clock
have a
has changed.
frequency in them.
Your clock has changed relative to the clock that emitted that photon. You don't see the time the same as the source that emitted it because you move in a speed relative to it.
My
Its
problem
clock
is
slower. Your
my
clock is.
My problem is that if you try and match photons against bullets, yes, indeed, the bullets, if you're firing them at a certain frequency, then each, as you correctly pointed out, if you were in a truck that's going backwards, the frequency between each bullet, the frequency you would experience the bullets coming at you would lower. But the point is, photons are individual, have the frequency themselves, so each bullet doesn't change its properties as a result of the lorry going backwards. Well, actually does, the relative velocity to you. Yeah, okay, the relative velocity is affected to you. But of course, with photons, which stay at the speed of light, then obviously what's happening is the frequency is changing as a result of that velocity change. And I basically don't understand how Doppler shift works with photons, I suppose is what I'm saying. So that's my problem.
Right, somebody else said this in the YouTube chat. Right, they said It's because the observer's frame's changing,
Yeah.
not the light.
Yes, I mean, I could do accept so that if you were to move towards the photon, then obviously, and you would. I don't accept this. Your time is changing, although it is, but I don't think that's really relevant. You
Yeah,
are
but
then
photons don't have time, do they? Because
indeed
they are traveling at the speed of light.
correct. That you're talking about the time
Photons
they
don't, but you
experience,
do.
but obviously,
Yeah.
we know that photon have a speed of light. But what you're talking about is the fact that if you were a photon, you would not experience time at all. Everything would happen instantaneously for you if you were a photon. But obviously, from our frame of reference, we can see that photons are not instantaneous. They are limited to the speed of light. So you've got to be careful about which frame of reference you're picking here.
Yeah, because C is constant across all frames of reference.
That's
Yeah,
right.
but when you, yes, but you
So
mustn't.
that's your problem, and that's why I decided not to let my brain worry about it too much, because
Yeah, basically, I don't understand. It's because, like, I think the bullet thing is a good example. You can understand with bullets why the frequency of the bullets changes.
yeah, but that's the wrong frequency, because you're looking.
Yes.
Because you're not worried about how many bullets you're firing. You're worried about the energy of each bullet.
Or how many bullets you're receiving.
And indeed, the energy of your bullet, from your point of view, will be less. If the truck is going away, then the energy of the bullet actually is, from your perspective, is going. But obviously, if you were to go,
because we're not traveling at the speed of light.
Okay, well, the energy of the bullet being fired would be the same. The energy of the bullet being received would be reduced.
Correct. Although, well, no, actually, the bullet leaving a gun, for instance, if the speed of the truck was the same speed as the bullet, then that you were firing backwards through the truck, then the bullet would if you're firing forward, for instance, then the bullet would never leave the muzzle of the gun. That would be it. No, sorry, it's added. No, that's not correct, because I'm mixing up my. No, it would, because it's added to.
In the bullet example, I'm thinking about somebody jumping in the back of a pickup, the pickup going forward, and somebody firing backwards off the pickup. But we know that headlights on the truck or train or whatever you want to call it, the photons leaving that are all leaving at the speed of light.
Correct. But if you were to go towards them, they would change color. They'd change frequency. And if they were receding from you, they'd be redshifted. Obviously, if you were moving away from a source of light, it would redshift. And if you're going towards it, you would blue shift it. And my basic problem is I don't understand now, thinking about how photons are individual, like individual bullets. You can think of them as.
It has to do with how often you're receiving the photon.
No, it's not. You see, that's the point. It's not about the frequency of numbers you're receiving, because we can talk about one photon. So if you've got one photon, if
has a frequency,
exactly, it does, and I just don't understand how that's being changed.
And this is a time when we should be talking about wavelengths, not frequencies.
Well, they're direct. Yeah. They're just inverse of one another, speed of light. So it doesn't make
it was said in this conversation only moments ago. As it was said in this conversation only moments ago, it would be the energy of the bullets as they left hasn't changed. You're moving closer or further has changed the energy that you have, the bullets have put upon you.
Well, it's a little bit different with bullets, unfortunately, because if you were bullets, speed of light is constant. So when you're with a light source, the speed of the light coming out is the same either way. Where the bullets is additive. So if you're on a truck that's going along, say, 1,000 miles an hour, and you fired a bullet that does 500 miles an hour, say, then the bullet would actually have a static relative to the ground would have a 1,500, assuming the air, obviously, this is in a vacuum, so there's no air resistance issues. It would have a velocity of 1,500 miles an hour relative to the ground on which the truck was moving. Yeah. Light's not like that. Light, if you're going along, light is going to come out at the same speed, no matter what velocity of the source. But the frequency is
replacing bullets with photons, for visualization sakes.
Yeah, but I'm just pointing out the rules are very different. The fact that the velocity of bullets is additive, whereas that's not the case. Whereas the frequency, it's a case of basically replacing the velocity is additive with the frequency, I think. So that's basically the rule. You can change the frequency of
getting there.
photon, but you can't change the velocity.
But if you try to impose that 1000 plus 500 onto a photon, I think that's maybe where your misunderstanding is. You know, I keep thinking, listening to
I'm
you.
not trying to do that though. That's exactly what I'm not trying to do. I'm not editing it. I'm pointing out that's the difference.
But you know, I don't know if you've ever. One of the sort of light bulb moments for me, in terms of this, was reading about Richard Feynman's QED, quantum electrodynamics, and there's several publications where you can actually kind of read about him actually describing, you know, exactly how this all works, and that really helped me. You know, because he's fucking Richard Feynman. He's a fantastic science communicator. I would heartily fucking recommend that you read some of his stuff.
I have.
You have?
Yes.
What-
Yes, I'm fundamentally yes. I'm just getting confused about how basically it's like bullets. You can think of it. It's sort of right. The bullets are additive with your truck going along, and whereas the velocity of a bullet is changed by doing a truck. In the case of light, it's the frequency that's changed, and the velocity stays the same. I think that's what. But it's basically the model of a photon in my head is I think for most people it's problematic. It's got wavelength, yet it is a particle. And this is sort of fundamental. This is why we didn't understand these photons until the 1920s. That photons have a frequency and they have a constant velocity, and obviously this is wave-particle duality issues. There's something obviously about.
But you can't say that a photon is a particle.
Yes, you can. Absolutely, it is.
No, but I
That's
mean,
exactly what it is.
No, but you can't.
Standard model.
But you can't absolutely say that a photon
Yes, you
is
can.
a particle.
That's what the photoelectric effect has shown. The point is it's wave-like properties. Are the quantum mechanical sort of interference stuff is actually the interference of the wave function. So, for instance, well, actually, no, I'm getting myself. This is a bit. I'm having a bit of a debate actually on Blue's Discord server. I was actually asking Clive Wells. Whether or not the wave function frequency is the same as the frequency of the light, and certainly for things like matter waves for electrons, the de Broglie wavelength for an electron is the same apparently as the wave function. Although I'm still not absolutely sure I understand that. In the Schrodinger wave function.
I'll go back to that. I mean, you can't in absolute terms say that a photon is a particle.
Yes, you can. If you see you're talking about Feynman earlier. There are some lectures that he did, some in Australia. I could give you a link to them later, which the properties of basically the way the interference type behavior, the wave-like properties are determined by the Schrodinger wave function. But it actually delivers a particle. The Schrodinger wave function says where the particle is going to end up, but it's very definitely a particle. And this is what the photoelectric effect says. It lands at one particular place. So when you were talking earlier, or someone else was talking about the photoelectric effect, you can fire when a photon hits an atom. It actually hits an atom, and that an electron, and then cause it to be promoted. All the energy. It's not like a wave. It's actually at a particular point. It's not dispersed like a wave on a pond. If you throw some rocks in, you get a wave front. It's not the energy is not going everywhere. It actually delivers a particle to a particular point.
It's a particle. It's a wave. It's both. It's neither. It's
the wave property. Well, as I said, it's two things.
It's just a chunk of energy.
Yeah, but the point is the wave properties of it are determined by the probability density of where something's going to go. But what's delivered is a particle. So that's where the two things are: the wave particle duality. The particle is delivered to a particular point, but where it goes is determined by the Schrodinger wave function.
Right. So, like I said, it's a wave. It's particle. It's both. It's neither. It's a photon. It's similar.
Well, everything's like that. I mean, don't forget, electrons behave in the same way. They have a wavelength as well. But again, let's remember that it does deliver a particle, but the wave function says where it's going to be. So that's where the wave-like property. So the actual thing that's being delivered is a particle. Same with a photon. It's actually delivering a particle, but
Well,
the wave, there's a wave function that says
people-
where it's going to be.
People have a
Rumpus,
wavelength too. It's just
so Rumpus, if a photon is a particle,
Yep.
how come it doesn't have any mass?
Well, mass in relative, because it's the relativistic equation for something does not include mass. So the actual energy, E, we talk about E is equal to mc squared. That's not actually the relativistic equation, excuse me, for the energy of something. It's E squared is equal to or E is equal to the square root of mass times m squared c to the power of 4 plus the momentum times the speed of light. And for photon, the mass is 0. So in fact, the energy of a photon is its momentum times the speed of light.
Yeah, you can infer. You know, if you if you imply E equals mc squared, you can give a photon mass.
No, you can't.
But
no, that's because that's not the right equation. I just described the correct equation, and a photon can have momentum, but it does not have mass. And I know that sounds a bit odd because we define momentum in sort of Newtonian terms as mass times velocity. The actual equation is the one I gave you, which is the Dirac version of energy, and that means you can have momentum without having mass.
Yeah, but what?
Thank you. You are victorious. You are victorious. Posted the correct thing in here. E squared is equal to p squared c squared plus m squared c to the 4 squared, and so you're Victoria. Very good.
That's what I meant. I mean, you can infer that a photon has mass.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
That's what. I'm just.
Well, you'd be making a
agreeing with. I'm just agreeing with what you just said.
Well, you can't infer that it's got mass because you'd be wrong.
That's what you just said.
No, I didn't. Look at the equation that you are Victoria's posted in the chat. E squared is equal to p squared c squared plus m squared c to the 4, and for photon, m is 0, and that means that the energy therefore is just E is equal to pc, where p is momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So as you Victoria's just agreed with me, said no mass, just momentum, yeah, and energy. So it does not have mass. You can't infer mass. You can infer momentum, but that's a bit odd, obviously. For not, I mean, physics undergraduates always, and it troubled me when I was a physics undergraduate, to say how can something have momentum and no mass? Well, it's that equation that you Victoria's just posted. That is the definition of momentum. We define momentum in Newtonian terms as mass times velocity. So how you can say, hold on, how can you have momentum without mass? Well, I'm afraid you can. The Dirac equation actually shows you what momentum is. It's a complicated concept, as with everything in bloody quantum physics. But you'd be wrong if you think photons have mass. They don't, but they do have momentum. In other words, if I were to fire lots of photons at you, you would have a photon pressure, and that's how we can do things like have these sails. The light from the sun, for instance, can actually drive things, and that's because the photons have momentum. They don't have mass, but they have momentum, and that momentum is conserved when it hits you.
You know, whenever I speak to you, Rumpus, I always feel that I'm having loads of photons fired at me.
That's probably true. You are in receipt of lots of photons, even if you're in a dark room, because the thermal energy, even infrared, is actually firing photons at you.
Yeah, I know we're safe.
But the photons do not have mass, but they do have momentum.
Mm.
No, that's a bit odd. I know it's odd, but I'm afraid that's the way it works.
I've got to say, I simply have to go to my bed because I'm fucking knackered.
You do sound knackered, John. By the way, John, quick question: are you available? Even though you're working really hard, but next year I'm still going to try and do Rect. Would you still be available or interested in coming down all the way down to to East Anglia to do the Rect thing with your telescope, or is it now you think you'd be too busy?
Well, it depends. Give me
okay.
Give me a shout.
Right.
Give me a shout.
I will. Okay.
You know that storm that happened last November in the UK.
Vaguely. Oh, it had a name, didn't it? Whatever it was called.
Oh, fuck knows.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Can't remember
Yeah.
what it
Carry
was
on.
called. But
Yeah. Go ahead.
but yeah, there are up here. There are like literally like thousands of wind-blown trees, dangerous wind-blown trees that need
And
to
you're not.
be.
And do you have to be fixing those all weekends? Do you? You can't get a weekend off.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could get a weekend off. I mean, it'll take years to.
Okay, but
to,
John, I just need you for a weekend. And you can't be working every weekend, sure. Unless I mean, obviously, I know it's a huge effort for you, though. I mean, obviously, coming down from Scotland to East Anglia is a huge journey for you, and you have to stay overnight or something. So yes, I can totally understand if you. It's just you said you were interested before, and I know you weren't busy then, but obviously you're busier now. But I'm just wondering whether or not you're still, in principle,
Well,
interested.
yeah, well, give me a shout. I mean,
Okay, I
like
will.
as
Okay,
long as I've got like
some notice. Yeah.
advance notice, yeah.
Okay, all right, great. I just wanted to know whether or not you were just. I just wanted to know whether or not now your situation had changed and you were no longer interested in making a mega journey across the entire country and going back again and living in a car park for an evening and God knows what. And now you're less inclined to do that
It's
sort of
the
thing. That was all.
fucking that kind of shit's this fucking story of my life.
It's a mega journey. It's like a drive across New Jersey, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, but within this country, we regard that as 8 miles and miles. It's 500 miles for the poor guy. Well,
But
300 on the road.
did you
Anyway.
see that? Before I go, did you see the picture that I posted?
In the chat. No, I didn't.
Yeah, my instructor.
Oh yeah, right. Got you. Yes, yeah. Action with a chainsaw. Is that you?
Yeah,
Oh, it's an iPhone. Sorry, that's the instructor, is it?
I'm not
Oh, no, it's you. It
sponsored
is you.
by. I'm not sponsored by Husqvarna, but I fucking should be.
No, good one, John. You're looking good there. Anyway, I better let you go to bed. I've been told off for keeping you up.
But anyway, it's really nice. It's really nice talking to you guys. I haven't been around for a while, and I'm quite glad that I dropped in because I appear to have steered you away from talking about flat Earth shit and onto something a bit more interesting and perplexing. So my work here is done, and I'll speak to you soon. You there, Harry?
Thanks for
Wait,
coming,
before you go, do you have any new images from the new observatory you built? Yeah.
Oh no, I had a bit of a the place where I was gonna build the observatory is now the old kennels. Because I live in an old gamekeeper's cottage with a big kennel block near my house, and that kennel block where I was going to build the observatory is now going to be redeveloped into a house, and so that's that fucked.
You had it built already. You had this thing in the ground.
Yeah. I was just about to start building the observatory, and people started walking around one day saying, "Yeah, so this could be the living room, and if we just built it out a little bit more, that could be the bathroom." And I'm like, "Who the fuck are you?" And yeah, so I have another site, so and because I'm a forester and I work out of a sawmill, I have no shortage of timber and like large 6-inch by say 3/4 inch boards and all that kind of stuff to make it out of. But yeah, this will be, if I do it again, this will be like third time lucky.
Do you know how to identify trees from quite a long distance away?
Yeah.
I hope you guys got that reference.
But yeah, so but yeah, I'm quite surprised I actually managed to join this call and stay awake. Because I've been on this this course this week, the chainsaw course, dealing with wind-blown trees. You know, like trees that have been blown over into other trees, and they're really dangerous. So it kind of requires a you know, to do a course just to make sure you're doing it safely. And yeah, so I've been in the woods for fucking days.
Well, hey, be safe, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, cheers, man. It was nice to talk to you all, and I'll sign out, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon.
All right, John.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you
Yeah,
drop
good
down.
night, John.
So now the real question: are photons horizontal
Or are they level?
or perhaps level, or both?
Levelzontal.
Holy shit, the Bedford level's in Cambridgeshire. I didn't know that.
Well, one end of them is actually just in Norfolk.
Is it?
Yeah, I only know that because it's the county I live in.
That's my old stomping ground. The Air Force sent me to Mildenhall quite a bit.
Well,
I used to bicycle around Ely. I used to like that.
yeah, that's actually, you know, Farmer's Boy. That's his. He grew up about
Right. Yeah, you
7
talk
or 8
about
miles from Mildenhall.
Yeah, you used to talk about watching the SR-71 take off.
Yeah, because I'm a bit further northeast because I'm between Norwich and the coast, much closer to the coast. But yeah, I've been to Mildenhall a few times for the air shows back in the 80s and 90s. Well, back in the 80s mostly. Although personally,
thanks everyone for letting me chime in for a little bit. Thanks, Blue. I watch a lot, but don't always join in. But I don't know. It's something with the conversation today. I thought I would.
well, maybe we shall see you again.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm right about any of the crap I said. I'm just proposing ideas, you know. So I'm always stand to be corrected, no problem. You know.
I don't know if you saw the thing that was going on in the live chat bit of the Discord. I'm sure it was you that said about the speed of sound being a barrier or something that couldn't be exceeded, and that wasn't. We already knew you could go faster than the speed of sound because we'd been sending projectiles faster than the speed of sound for a long time. The problem was controlled flight because of the compressibility of the air and the shock waves that we didn't understand, especially the ones on the tailplane that kind of.
Well, they also didn't understand it. In most of those airplanes that they built, the wing and the tailplane are in the same line, and you would get the shock off the wing inside. You know, would cover the tail. They didn't understand that. That's why some of
the survivability of man past that speed. I mean, I think
that was pretty much
Model T. They were worried about a person couldn't travel faster than 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't think they were seriously concerned about that. That's why because of that, some of the early, especially some of the early supersonic airplanes, if you looked at the tail is definitely not in line with the wings. Trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. I didn't realize the Bedford level was so close. I wasn't into the flat Earth when I was, when I was when they had me in Milton Hall. I got out and seen the damn thing. It doesn't look too interesting though. Just a flat
It's not.
piece of water.
I've driven past it. It's basically a couple of dikes. When were you over here?
Oh, let's see. They sent me there. That's mostly there from like 82 to 88, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that was mostly during my service in the Royal Air Force as well. So,
Yeah, I knew a couple of dykes once, but when they asked me what do I want for Christmas, they gave me a wristwatch. I think they misunderstood. Sorry, bad joke.
although around me, I tend to get a lot of aircraft from the other US Air Force base down by Mildenhall, Lakenheath.
Is that still open?
Yeah, it's got the Liberty Wing. The F-15s are still there.
That's what the 111s were for a long time.
Yeah, and they've got Ospreys there, and I think they've got some Marine Corps F-35s at the minute in there.
They're talking about shutting down Mildenhall, but I guess they backed off on that because the infrastructure there is just one thing. They're going to move it all to Germany. I guess one of the previous governments didn't like them there.
I don't think any of our governments have ever had a problem with having Mildenhall and Lakenheath there, mostly because of what it does for our local economies.
Especially some of the local bars. I spent a lot of money in the, what was the name of that thing right off that base? Oh, it was some stupid pub.
Oh, there's always some stupid pub that's popular with the servicemen, especially the single guys. Because why is it single servicemen never seem to have anything to spend money on except for beer and cars?
Because basically they all have to spend money on this.
And of course, you get to buy tax-free cars.
I didn't have a car when I was there. I was only there temporarily, so I didn't have a car.
Tax-free cars? Really?
We didn't have to pay. What's it? What's that tax you guys have?
Well, on cars, there's VAT, there's car tax, there's multiple different taxes and duties on a car, and then you pay VAT on the whole, including the taxes and duties.
Don't think they had to pay VAT, but they had to pay the rest of them because those were like license plate fees and stuff. Road taxes and road use stuff. I forget what the ones were. I didn't have a car over there. Some guys did, but I didn't have one. I was happy with the buses and with the trains.
Yeah, public transport's not bad over here, is it? Really?
And I had a bicycle. I would go up to Ely and down to Cambridge.
I don't know how it works outside the U.S., but if you buy something on a military base, generally it's duty free, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would go down to Bury, the old cathedral at Bury.
Bury St. Edmunds.
Bury St. Edmunds.
Yeah, that's an abbey, not a cathedral. But
abbey, okay, right. I'm sorry.
It's a fine distinction for a lot of people.
Yeah, okay, you're right. It was an abbey. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a funny joke about myself. I was bicycling all over. And I'd see all these little pubs, and each pub they'd have courage on there. Courage. I thought this was like something very English, like fortitude, victory. Then I come to find out it's John Courage beer. Basically, they had Budweiser on the side of everything, and I didn't know it.
Yeah. Well, yes, because in this country, many of the pubs are actually owned by the breweries. So that would be the name of the brewery that owns the pub and therefore provides it with the beer.
Yeah, I heard they have a.
Talk about
heard that
large
the-
breweries or like microbreweries?
No, these are the big commercial ones. So Courage Breweries is.
They got bought out by someone, didn't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, they've all become. There's only about 4 or 5 of the big ones in the UK now, plus sort of a dozen or so. Sort of small, not microbreweries, but small breweries. So there's Adnams at Southwold and Green King at Bury St Edmunds, in fact. So yeah, there's these sort of smaller breweries dotted around the country, and then you have then we have microbreweries, but not so many of them over here. I think
That's because your beer doesn't suck.
Yeah.
U.S. commercial beer sucks. That's the microbreweries are the savior of it.
Yeah. I think especially our sort of the Adnams, Green King, Shepherd and Neame, Theakston's, all of these smaller level breweries that aren't owned by the big conglomerates, they all produce really good beer that I think is probably commensurate with some of your craft beers.
You know what you can't find here is you can't find English bitters, and I miss it. They just don't make it here. It's not
Don't make a
popular.
proper bitter.
No, it's
I know
difficult
you
to find.
Yeah, I suppose you can always drink India Pale Ale. So
It's close, but it's not the same.
it's not the same, I know. But the thing is that
They do
you
make
can't
IPA.
really
Makes a really good one.
you can't really bottle a proper bitter.
Right. You can't bottle it, and you can't drink it cold.
No.
Americans like to drink beer cold, and it kills your taste buds.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it's warm; it's just that it's not chilled.
Right.
Because of course, it should be being kept in a proper cellar, and the cellar isn't going to be hot. It's just not going to be.
Yeah, I understand. It's much different here. I do remember one air show I was there that the temperature was up about 90 Fahrenheit. What is that? 30 Celsius.
Yeah.
And everybody is dying. I mean, all the English guys are there dying. They're like chugging water, drinking shorts, and they're all turning red. And I'm walking around in a full Nomex flight suit with a scarf and a hat. And they're going like, "How come you can take that?" And you're going like, "This is common weather in large swaths of the United States. You just get used to it."
Yeah. Yeah. Or chugging lots of your virtually no alcohol content American commercial beer.
Well, they took a dim view of that when you're wearing your.
Yeah. But that was one of the things I liked about the Mildenhall Air Show, was the was all the sections would have a barbecue and be selling cans of beer out of a big bucket of ice.
The other thing they would have, well, in Germany more in England, they'd have corn on the cob, which was not something that Europeans are used to, because maize is a dog food, cow food actually.
Yeah, we don't eat a lot of maize over here. Not.
But
I mean, we do eat corn on the cob, or sweet corn, but not huge quantities of it.
Right. Well, in Germany they didn't drink it all.
Yeah, we got a lot of pubs that'll advertise, beer at 32.5 degrees, just above freezing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
far too cold.
Well, not for American beer. If it's not that cold,
Yeah,
it
not for
tastes like
American beer.
crap.
Yeah, it kills the taste, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When I was much younger, I went to Germany and came back, and I couldn't drink American beer for like a year.
That's providing it has taste to be killed.
There's a lot of
I
microbreweries,
remember
especially in Colorado.
I remember when I was 10 years old, I went and stayed with a German family in a small village just outside the town of Ludwigshafen. And I distinctly remember being given beer because it would have been the first time I'd been given beer. And I didn't actually like it very much. It only took about 3 or 4 years, completely reversed though.
One thing that's really common here is you'd be out doing something in the sun, mowing a lawn or something like that, and cracking open a cold beer, which I could never understand. If I'm in the heat like that, I cannot drink alcohol whatsoever.
I agree with that.
Give me a cold water. I love seltzer or club soda. That's about the best when it's hot like that.
Yeah, I'll drink water or something. I'm not interested in beer when it's when I'm outside and it's really hot.
Now, when I come in and relax a little bit, that's a different story. I'll have a beer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, beer when you're finished, not while you're doing.
And a shout out to John Watson for £5. FTL will happen in my man shed. All right, John.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate that, man. Well, we're coming up on the 3-hour point.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm going to pop out. Thanks again, Blue, for allowing me to jump in. Even though
You bet. You bet. You're welcome anytime. I think I'll start doing these streams a little more often now.
Yeah, I mean, even if I don't come in, I usually listen. I got a smart TV, and I throw it up on YouTube on the smart TV, and I'll pop that on and just sit back and listen to you guys. I really do enjoy it.
Oh, we always have fun discussions.
Agreed.
And at least not a lot of it has to do with flat Earth, so that's a good thing.
All the better.
Yeah, exactly.
But
with that,
at least,
Yeah, we'll get those photons sorted out.
Yeah, damn photons.
yeah, like I say, at least the flat Earth gives an excuse for us to talk about science a bit, doesn't it? And other stuff.
That's their only
And geometry, yeah.
Well, Professor Dave did a couple series on how to disprove the flat Earth not using geometry or math. Yeah.
Check it out, guys. Shout out Kit for $20. Hello, sir. Good to see you, and thanks for the laughs. Keep up the good work. You bet, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Who says there's no money in YouTube?
All in all, even though I proposed that bullets off the
No,
top,
there are people that live of it.
I actually kind of do agree with Rumpus. It's confusing to understand where the blue shift or red shift would come from.
Yeah, it's difficult in the same way that relativity is difficult.
Above my pay grade.
In precisely the same way, in fact.
Yeah. Probably because of special and general relativity combined.
Well, yeah, and the whole expanding universe thing is tough to visualize.
I don't know. I don't have too much trouble visualizing that.
Well, that's what causes most of the redshift.
Yeah.
Was it
Oh,
Feynman
yeah.
or was it that said just shut up and calculate?
I don't know if it was Feynman, but that's one of the. Doesn't sound too Feynman-y, actually.
All
Yeah, I
righty.
guess you're right. It is Feynman. Shut up and calculate. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
I apologize.
Well, I'm going to say goodnight to the YouTube stream. You guys can hang out in here as long as you want to.
thanks, Blue. I was about to pop out anyway. Thanks so
yeah.
much, guys. Have a good night, everyone. Good day, good night, whatever it is for you.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks to everybody out there in the YouTube chat. Yeah, it's been listening to us. We've had a good turnout. Consistently, 50 to 60 people out there. So that's quite nice. And we'll do this again. And with that, you guys take care. See you later.